What if the past holds secrets too dark, too twisted, to ever be fully understood? Across centuries, countless events have left echoes of mystery. Civilizations vanished without a trace. Unsolved crimes defy logic, and artifacts whisper stories we may never decode. From forgotten tombs in the deserts of Palestine to inexplicable phenomena recorded in dusty manuscripts, history is littered with unanswered questions that chill the soul and ignite the imagination. Tonight, we journey into the shadows of our collective past. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the biggest mysteries that history refuses to explain. Mist hangs low over the rolling hills of northern Britain, draping the landscape in a cloak of fog that seems almost eternal. Beneath this quiet, unassuming terrain lies a story that has puzzled historians for nearly 2 millennia: the disappearance of the 9th Roman Legion. Once a formidable force of the Roman Empire, renowned for its discipline and military prowess, the 9th vanished from the historical record sometime in the early 2nd century AD. Its absence is not merely a footnote in ancient chronicles. It is a profound historical enigma that continues to ignite debate among scholars, archaeologists, and armchair historians alike. The Legion, formerly known as Legio IX Hispania, was raised in Hispania, modern-day Spain, during the late Roman Republic. It fought with distinction in campaigns across Gaul and Germania before being stationed in Britain around AD 43, as Rome sought to consolidate control over the newly conquered provinces. Inscriptions, military diplomas, and fragmentary accounts reveal that the 9th was active in northern Britain, particularly around Hadrian's Wall, the empire's northern frontier. The archaeological evidence, fort remnants, temporary camps, and inscriptions paints a picture of a legion that was well organized and deeply integrated into Rome's military machine. Yet, by the early 2nd century AD, the trail abruptly fades. There are no official records of the 9th's ultimate fate. Some historians point to a catastrophic campaign against rebellious tribes in what is now Scotland, suggesting that the legion may have been decimated in battle. The idea of a single legion, thousands strong, wiped out entirely, is difficult to reconcile with the Roman tendency to document military disasters. Roman historians, notoriously meticulous about military losses, make only passing or vague references, leaving more questions than answers. Could such a well-trained force truly have vanished without a trace? Other explanations lean toward administrative shifts rather than violent demise. Some scholars propose that the 9th was transferred to another province, perhaps to the eastern frontiers or even to the Roman heartlands, and was subsequently merged into another legion, its name lost in bureaucratic reshuffling. Supporting this theory, there are inscriptions suggesting a 9th Legion presence in the Rhine region and even hints of activity near the Danube, though none are conclusive. If true, the disappearance would be less a dramatic annihilation than an elegant bureaucratic erasure. But why, then, does Britain bear no record of its withdrawal? And why do local sources, later Welsh and Northern British chronicles, suggest a brutal conflict rather than a quiet redeployment? Adding to the intrigue are archaeological anomalies. Excavations at York, known as Eboracum in Roman times, reveal evidence of repairs to forts that some interpret as hurried, perhaps after a violent conflict. Roman camps in northern Britain show sudden abandonment, with equipment left behind, yet no bodies or mass graves definitively tied to the 9th have been discovered. This gap fuels speculation. Did the Legion march into a trap? Were they ambushed by tribes in the dense forests and craggy hills of Caledonia? Or did disease, attrition, and harsh northern winters quietly erode their numbers before the Legion quietly ceased to exist? Fringe theories, while less accepted in academic circles, add another layer to the mystery. Some propose that survivors may have integrated with local tribes, leaving behind their Roman identities to become part of a different culture entirely. Others have suggested that the Ninth may have ventured beyond Britain, possibly to continental Europe or even to far-flung corners of the empire, only to be absorbed into new legions under different names. Archaeologists occasionally unearth Roman military artifacts in unexpected locations, though definitive links to the Ninth remain elusive. Even the Roman record itself offers subtle contradictions. Inscriptions from around AD 108 to 120 mention the Ninth Legion, but details are scarce and inconsistent. Was the legion stationed in Britain at the time, or had it already been reassigned? Some letters and military diplomas refer vaguely to service in Germania or along the Danube, raising more questions than they answer. Each fragmentary record is a breadcrumb, teasing historians with hints while withholding the full narrative. The disappearance of the Ninth Roman Legion is not merely a story of military loss. It is a lens through which we glimpse the fragility of historical memory. The Legion's fate forces us to confront the gaps in our knowledge and reminds us that even the most powerful empires can leave mysteries that endure. Why did the Ninth vanish so completely from Britain's historical record? Was it slaughter, disease, bureaucratic erasure, or something entirely unforeseen? As we walk through the misty hills where Roman sandals once tread, the silence itself becomes a witness to history's unanswered questions. And so, as the fog drifts through ancient forts and over rolling hills, the Ninth Legion's story remains suspended between fact and conjecture. Its legacy is etched not only in the stones of abandoned camps, but in the uncertainty that continues to haunt historians and explorers. The deeper we search, the more the mystery seems to expand, inviting us to wonder what truths may still lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting for discovery. As we leave the mist-shrouded hills of northern Britain and the lingering questions surrounding the Ninth Roman Legion, we find ourselves drawn to an entirely different enigma, one that is far quieter, yet no less puzzling. Across the rolling landscapes of Europe, from the fields of modern-day Germany to the river valleys of France, small, hollow objects of bronze and stone sit in museums, private collections, and occasionally forgotten in the soil where they were unearthed. These are the Roman Dodecahedrons, 12-sided geometric artifacts, each edge punctuated with a circular hole, ranging in size from a few centimeters to nearly 20. They are delicate, precise, and utterly perplexing. The dodecahedrons date to the late Roman Empire, roughly between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD. They have been discovered in territories that were under Roman influence, stretching from Gaul to the Danube frontier, with the highest concentrations in what is now modern Germany. Yet despite their wide distribution, no written records from antiquity describe their purpose. Roman texts, legal codes, military manuals, agricultural treatises remain silent. No mention in the letters of senators or the diaries of provincial governors provides even a hint. And yet, these objects were clearly crafted with intention, as the symmetry, careful hollowing, and meticulous finishing suggest a functional purpose rather than mere decoration. Scholars have long debated what these objects were for. The most conventional theories propose practical uses. Could they have been candle holders, measuring devices, or tools for calibrating distances or weights? Some suggest they were used in textile production, perhaps to help knit gloves or measure thread tension. The geometric precision is consistent with tools or instruments designed for repeated use. Yet, every theory seems to encounter obstacles. The holes vary in size within each object, seemingly arbitrary. Some dodecahedrons are made of bronze, others of stone, materials that would suggest very different uses. And then there is the sheer number of them. Over 100 have been documented, scattered over hundreds of miles. Yet no archaeological context definitively confirms any of the proposed functions. Adding to the intrigue is their apparent placement. Many have been found in rural settlements, near rivers or crossroads, rather than in temples, workshops, or military forts. Some were unearthed alongside domestic objects, coins, or small tools, while others appear almost isolated, buried in fields or forests, leaving archaeologists to wonder whether their original significance had shifted over time, or if they were deliberately hidden. Why would an object designed for practical purposes be so consistently found in such ambiguous locations? And if they were ceremonial or symbolic, why is there no accompanying iconography or inscription to guide our understanding? Fringe theories, though less accepted academically, paint an even more enigmatic picture. Some have speculated that the Dodecahedrons were used in divination or astrology, aligning with celestial events or lunar cycles. Others propose that they were ritual objects, perhaps linked to initiation rites or secret societies within the Roman provinces. Certain enthusiasts suggest they could have been early surveying instruments, even pointing toward the future development of complex geometry in medieval engineering. While there is little concrete evidence to support these claims, the consistency of their geometric design and distribution suggests intentionality far beyond casual craftwork. Scientific analyses have offered more clues, yet also deepened the mystery. Metallurgical studies of the bronze examples show high-quality alloys, indicative of skilled artisans. Stone dodecahedrons reveal precise drilling techniques, some requiring specialized tools that would have been unusual in provincial workshops. Yet no pattern emerges from these analyses that definitively links them to a singular purpose. Experimental archaeology has attempted to recreate their potential uses, from candle holders to dice for gaming, yet none fully satisfy the questions posed by their holes, symmetry, and widespread distribution. Every hypothesis solves one problem while opening another, leaving the objects perpetually suspended in ambiguity. Even the act of discovery adds to their allure. Many were found accidentally during agricultural work or small excavations, often centuries after being buried. Unlike Roman coins or military equipment, they were not mass-produced or standardized, suggesting a careful, deliberate creation and deployment. Their presence across such a wide geographic area hints at cultural significance, trade, or shared knowledge. Yet without textual evidence, we are left to speculate. Were they luxury items for elites? Tools for artisans? Objects imbued with symbolic meaning now lost to time? Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Roman dodecahedrons is the silence that surrounds them. For an empire that documented its laws, architecture, conquests, and daily life with meticulous attention, the absence of any explanation is striking. We are left with the objects themselves, silent witnesses to a culture whose ordinary life and extraordinary ingenuity were meticulously recorded, except in this case, where something essential has slipped through history's grasp. And so, as we stand in museums, handle replicas, or imagine the hands that crafted these 12-sided enigmas, we are confronted with a quiet mystery. Each dodecahedron invites us to wonder, what purpose could have been so important that it warranted such precise creation, yet so mundane or secret that it left no trace in contemporary writings? Were these objects tools, toys, or talismans? And in a world governed by Roman order and logic, why does their meaning remain entirely elusive? As we move through Europe's fields and museums, the dodecahedrons remain scattered, a testament to the Roman capacity for both innovation and obscurity. Like the Ninth Legion's fate in the north, they remind us that history is not always a neat ledger of events, victories, and conquests. Sometimes, it is a series of questions left open, waiting for centuries to whisper their answers, or to remain forever enigmatic. And in that quiet uncertainty, the mystery of the Roman dodecahedrons continues to captivate, compelling us to peer more closely, to measure, to imagine, and ultimately to accept that some truths may never fully reveal themselves. As we leave behind the scattered mysteries of Roman Europe and the silent geometric puzzles of the Dodecahedrons, our journey takes us south, across deserts and the Nile, to the rocky quarries of Aswan, where one of ancient Egypt's most enigmatic monuments lies suspended in time. Here, beneath the relentless sun and the shadow of colossal stone formations, rests the unfinished obelisk, a monument that was meant to become the largest stone ever quarried by humanity, yet remains permanently anchored in the granite from which it was hewn. Its presence is both awe-inspiring and perplexing, a testament to ambition halted mid-creation, leaving us to wonder what secrets the stone itself might conceal. The obelisk, dating to the reign of Pharaoh Hatshepsut in the 15th century BC, measures an astounding 42 meters in length and would have weighed nearly 1,200 tons had it been completed. Even today, it dwarfs most modern engineering feats, yet it remains incomplete, fractured along its base by a crack that rendered the project impossible to finish. Unlike finished obelisks, which were quarried, transported, and erected with astonishing precision, the unfinished obelisk lies tilted slightly in its bed, its surface marked with the channels and grooves of the laborers' chisels. The sheer scale and ambition of the undertaking make the failure all the more remarkable, and all the more mysterious. Mainstream explanations attribute the obelisk's abrupt abandonment to the crack that appeared during its extraction. Granite, despite its reputation for hardness and durability, is prone to fractures along natural fissures. Quarrying such a massive monolith using only copper tools, wooden wedges, and human labor would have been extraordinarily risky, and the crack may have been discovered too late to salvage the effort. Yet, as straightforward as this explanation seems, it leaves lingering questions. How did Egyptian engineers, renowned for their precision and skill, fail to detect structural weaknesses before beginning the monumental task? Were there methods, now lost to history, that could have predicted or avoided such fractures? And why was no alternative attempt made in the same quarry, given the abundance of granite in the region? Archaeologists and engineers have studied the site extensively, documenting the obelisk's partially carved surface and the channels cut to facilitate its removal. Detailed examinations reveal that the workers progressed meticulously, carving parallel grooves and shaping the stone with extraordinary accuracy. Marks from copper chisels are visible, yet the precision achieved on such a massive scale defies easy explanation. Modern experiments using replicas suggest that moving and erecting a monolith of this size would require sophisticated understanding of leverage, friction, and coordination, skills that ancient Egyptians clearly possessed, yet details of their methods remain largely conjectural. Could the crack itself have been an anomaly of the granite, or might it reflect limitations in techniques or tools that have never been fully documented? Speculation grows when we consider the broader context. The obelisk's size and intended scale are unparalleled, even among the many enormous obelisks that Egypt produced. What motivated Pharaoh Hatshepsut to commission a stone of such colossal dimensions? Was it intended purely as a display of political and religious power, a symbol of the divine order she sought to project? Or did it serve a deeper ceremonial or astronomical function that we have yet to decipher? Some theorists suggest that the positioning of obelisks in Egyptian temples and cityscapes reflected sophisticated understanding of celestial alignments. Could this unfinished monolith have been part of a larger cosmic plan, one interrupted by a flaw in the stone? Fringe theories add further layers to the mystery. A few researchers have proposed that the crack was not merely a natural accident, but might have been influenced by spiritual or ritual considerations. In a culture where stone was believed to possess life and divine essence, a fracture could have been interpreted as an omen, a signal that the stone should not be moved or used. Others speculate that the obelisk's immense size and incomplete state indicate experimental engineering, a trial in techniques later perfected elsewhere. Could the unfinished obelisk represent a lost chapter in ancient Egyptian ingenuity, a technological ambition that exceeded even the remarkable capabilities of the civilization? The quarry itself provides additional clues, yet maintains an aura of unanswered questions. Other obelisks, successfully carved and transported from Aswan to sites across Egypt, suggest that the granite there was, in general, suitable for monumental construction. Small cracks and imperfections were undoubtedly known to the quarrymen, yet the unfinished obelisk's failure seems exceptional. Were the laborers unlucky, the granite unusually flawed, or were there aspects of the extraction process that introduced stress to the stone in unforeseen ways? Evidence of wooden levers, channels, and unfinished stone wedges hint at elaborate methods, yet without a full record, each hypothesis remains tentative. Even the human element deepens the mystery. Thousands of workers, skilled artisans, and overseers would have participated in the obelisk's creation, yet their voices are lost to history. No inscriptions describe the labor, the decision to abandon the project, or the emotional impact of such a failure. We can only imagine the tension, the painstaking work halted mid-stride, the frustration of realizing that a crack had doomed an achievement of monumental ambition. The stone itself becomes a silent witness to both human skill and the limitations imposed by nature. As we observe the unfinished obelisk today, tilted and fractured, the scale of what was attempted remains humbling. It is not only an artifact of ancient engineering, but also a profound reminder of history's unresolved mysteries. Why did this project begin with such audacity, only to be abandoned? Could it have been completed if circumstances had been slightly different? Or was the endeavor doomed from the start? And what might we learn if more pieces of the quarry's story, long buried beneath centuries of sand and stone, were brought to light? In standing before this giant of Aswan, we confront a paradox, a creation that demonstrates both mastery and limitation, ingenuity and vulnerability. It invites us to consider the interplay of human ambition, natural constraints, and the passage of time. The unfinished obelisk is more than a monument. It is a question carved in granite, a whisper from the past that urges us to ponder the boundaries of what is possible and to reflect on the knowledge, techniques, and choices that have been lost to history. And so, as the sun casts shadows along the unhewn surface, tracing the outlines of the laborer's precise work, the mystery remains. The obelisk's crack halts not only its ascent into the sky, but also our certainty, leaving us to wonder what secrets the ancient quarries of Aswan still hold, and whether, somewhere beneath the granite, the full story awaits those who are patient enough to uncover it. From the quarries of Aswan, where the unfinished obelisk remains suspended in granite silence, we turn our gaze eastward across mountains, deserts, and rivers to the sun-scorched plains of present-day Gujarat, India. Here lies the site of Dholavira, one of the most remarkable yet enigmatic cities of the Indus Valley civilization. Unlike the monumental stone structures of Egypt or the geometric enigmas of Roman Europe, Dholavira presents a subtler, quieter puzzle, a thriving urban port that, after centuries of apparent prosperity, vanished from history, leaving behind meticulously planned streets, water reservoirs, and fortifications, but no clear explanation for its sudden abandonment. Dholavira flourished around 3000 to 1500 BC, a period contemporary with the late Egyptian dynasties and the early civilizations of Mesopotamia. Spread over nearly 100 hectares, the city was meticulously engineered, with a complex grid system, fortified citadels, and reservoirs capable of storing monsoon water for dry months. Archaeologists have marveled at its sophisticated architecture, massive stone platforms, carefully crafted gateways, and a unique water management system that reflects not only ingenuity, but an intimate understanding of the environment. It was a city built for endurance, yet something interrupted its trajectory, leaving it silent and largely uninhabited for millennia. The port city's prominence suggests it was a hub of trade and culture. Artifacts recovered from the site, seals, beads, pottery, and inscriptions in the still undeciphered Indus script, point to extensive commercial connections, likely stretching across the Indian subcontinent and possibly even to Mesopotamia. Dholavira's harbors, once linked to the Arabian Sea, would have facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. And yet, despite its apparent wealth and strategic significance, the city was gradually abandoned, leaving behind structures that continue to challenge archaeologists and historians alike. Mainstream explanations focus on environmental factors. Some researchers argue that shifting river courses, declining rainfall, or rising salinity may have disrupted agriculture and water supply, forcing inhabitants to relocate. The meticulous reservoirs and water channels, once the city's greatest asset, could have become insufficient in the face of prolonged drought or ecological change. Yet, if environmental pressures were the sole cause, why do we see evidence of sustained habitation over centuries before the decline? Why did other Indus cities endure similar challenges, while Dholavira, apparently thriving, fell silent? Trade disruption provides another angle of inquiry. As maritime networks shifted and neighboring civilizations evolved, Dholavira's strategic importance may have waned. Changes in trade routes or political alliances could have isolated the city economically, weakening its ability to sustain a large population. Yet here again, the evidence is incomplete. We find traces of commerce, but no records of conflict, famine, or societal collapse. The city's abandonment seems gradual rather than violent, a silent fading rather than a dramatic catastrophe. Intrigue deepens when we consider the human aspect. The residents of Dholavira were highly organized, with governance, craftsmanship, and urban planning evident in every corner of the city. Their seals and inscriptions suggest a complex social structure, yet their language and documentation remain undeciphered. We are unable to hear their perspective, unable to understand the decisions that led them to leave behind walls, reservoirs, and streets designed for permanence. Did they foresee an impending environmental disaster? Or were external pressures, invisible to us, reshaping their world in ways that we cannot fully reconstruct? Fringe theories add layers of speculation without providing certainty. Some suggest that seismic activity or sudden climatic shifts may have rendered the city unsafe. Others posit that Dholavira could have suffered economic or cultural collapse precipitated by distant political upheavals or changes in regional power dynamics. A few even entertain more imaginative notions, secret knowledge lost with the city, or catastrophic events so subtle they left no archaeological trace. While these ideas remain speculative, they highlight the depth of our ignorance and the persistent questions that Dholavira inspires. The urban fabric itself fuels curiosity. The massive stone gates, some over 5 meters high, were carefully positioned along the city's axes, suggesting a deep understanding of geometry and spatial organization. Reservoirs, connected by channels cut from solid rock, demonstrate sophisticated engineering and foresight. How could a city designed with such meticulous attention to detail simply fall into disuse? Were these structures abandoned gradually, or was the departure sudden, leaving behind tools, everyday objects, and the echo of human life? Archaeological excavations reveal some household items left in situ, yet the narrative remains incomplete, leaving more questions than answers. Dholavira also challenges assumptions about the Indus Valley civilization. Unlike the pyramids or obelisks of Egypt, whose purpose and construction are relatively well documented, Indus sites leave us without clear historical accounts. The language, culture, and decision-making processes of the people remain largely opaque. In Dholavira, the very urban planning that should offer clarity instead magnifies uncertainty. Every stone, every reservoir, every gate is a testament to intentional design, but also a reminder of what we cannot know: the social, political, or environmental pressures that led to the city's decline. And so, as we walk virtually through the sun-bleached streets of Dholavira, imagining the rhythm of a city once alive with trade, governance, and daily life, the mystery remains. Why did this remarkable city, built with such foresight and precision, succumb to silence? Could environmental change alone explain its abandonment, or do hidden factors, social, economic, or even spiritual, play a role that has been erased by time? Dholavira's silence invites reflection. It is not a story of dramatic destruction, but of disappearance, of people, knowledge, and activity fading from the landscape, leaving monumental architecture and unanswered questions in its wake. In the absence of written explanations, we are left to contemplate the fragility of civilizations, the subtle interplay between human ingenuity and environmental forces, and the secrets that the Earth still guards. And as we study its stone platforms, reservoirs, and gates, we are reminded that some chapters of history remain unwritten, waiting patiently for those who are willing to observe, to question, and to wonder what might still be hidden beneath the sands. Were these structures abandoned gradually, or was the departure sudden, leaving behind tools, everyday objects, and the echo of human life? Archaeological excavations reveal some household items left in situ, yet the narrative remains incomplete, leaving more questions than answers. Dholavira also challenges assumptions about the Indus Valley civilization. Unlike the pyramids or obelisks of Egypt, whose purpose and construction are relatively well documented, Indus sites leave us without clear historical accounts. The language, culture, and decision-making processes of the people remain largely opaque. In Dholavira, the very urban planning that should offer clarity instead magnifies uncertainty. Every stone, every reservoir, every gate is a testament to intentional design, but also a reminder of what we cannot know: the social, political, or environmental pressures that led to the city's decline. And so, as we walk virtually through the sun-bleached streets of Dholavira, imagining the rhythm of a city once alive with trade, governance, and daily life, the mystery remains. Why did this remarkable city, built with such foresight and precision, succumb to silence? Could environmental change alone explain its abandonment, or do hidden factors, social, economic, or even spiritual, play a role that has been erased by time? Dholavira's silence invites reflection. It is not a story of dramatic destruction, but of disappearance, of people, knowledge, and activity fading from the landscape, leaving monumental architecture and unanswered questions in its wake. In the absence of written explanations, we are left to contemplate the fragility of civilizations, the subtle interplay between human ingenuity and environmental forces, and the secrets that the Earth still guards. And as we study its stone platforms, reservoirs, and gates, we are reminded that some chapters of history remain unwritten, waiting patiently for those who are willing to observe, to question, and to wonder what might still be hidden beneath the sands. From the sun-baked streets and silent reservoirs of Dholavira, where one of the Indus Valley's greatest cities vanished into history, our journey now leads us northward to the windswept landscapes of the Taman Peninsula in southern Russia. Here, among rolling plains, riverbanks, and fields that have witnessed centuries of human activity, enormous spheres of stone lie scattered across the terrain. Smooth, perfectly rounded, and astonishingly uniform, these megalithic objects immediately command attention. They are the giant stone spheres of the Taman Peninsula, relics whose origin, purpose, and method of creation remain shrouded in mystery. The spheres vary in size from small, fist-sized stones to massive boulders several meters in diameter, some weighing multiple tons. Carved from local granite or other hard stone, their near-perfect spherical shape challenges both ancient and modern understanding. How did the creators of these objects manage to shape such hard rock with such precision long before advanced machinery existed? Unlike natural formations that can, over time, erode into round shapes, these spheres show a degree of symmetry and smoothness that appears deliberate, almost impossibly intentional. Archaeologists have documented hundreds of these stone spheres in the Taman region, often found in clusters, sometimes aligned in linear arrangements or near elevated terraces. The sites suggest deliberate placement, yet there is no accompanying settlement, monument, or inscription to explain their existence. The spheres themselves are unmarked, devoid of carvings, symbols, or apparent utilitarian features. Their uniformity, combined with the lack of contextual evidence, presents a puzzle that continues to challenge researchers. Were they markers, tools, or objects of ritual significance? Or did they serve some purpose now lost to the passage of millennia? Mainstream explanations have largely focused on practical and cultural possibilities. Some propose that the spheres were used as weights for construction, possibly as counterbalances for levers or pulleys. Others suggest they might have served as markers delineating territory, pathways, or sacred sites. Yet these hypotheses encounter difficulties. Many spheres are far from any known settlement or construction site, and the precision with which they were shaped exceeds what would have been necessary for simple utilitarian tasks. Furthermore, the sheer labor required to create multiple-ton spheres from solid rock with rudimentary tools raises questions about the motivation and organizational capacity of the people who made them. Scientific investigations into the sphere's composition and craftsmanship have revealed additional curiosities. The granite and other rock types used are consistent with local geology, suggesting that the raw materials were readily available. Yet the uniformity of their roundness, the smoothness of their surfaces, and the symmetry of their diameters indicate careful planning, skillful execution, and an eye for geometry. Modern replicas, created using manual techniques, demonstrate how difficult it would be to achieve this level of perfection without considerable experience and an organized workforce. Could these spheres be evidence of an advanced understanding of geometry in a prehistoric society, a knowledge now forgotten? The sphere's arrangement in clusters has also prompted speculation about astronomical or ceremonial functions. Some researchers have noted that certain clusters appear to align with solstices or prominent geographic features, raising the possibility that the spheres were part of a larger observational or ritual complex. Yet there is no textual record, no definitive link to known cultures, and no contemporaneous explanation for their placement. The silence of history, like the smooth surfaces of the stones, leaves more questions than answers. Fringe theories have attempted to fill the void left by historical silence, though they remain speculative. A few suggest that the spheres were used in prehistoric games or competitions, possibly as rolling or lifting challenges. Others have proposed that they represent symbolic or religious objects, perhaps representing the sun, cosmic bodies, or deities. A more controversial idea posits that the spheres were markers of advanced or even lost technologies, a claim with little concrete evidence but one that captures the imagination of enthusiasts seeking explanations beyond conventional archaeology. Even the process of discovery adds to the mystery. Many spheres were first noted in the 19th and early 20th centuries by explorers and ethnographers, but detailed studies only began later. The scattered nature of the finds complicates attempts to understand their purpose. Unlike megaliths or pyramids, which suggest monumental labor with an obvious societal goal, the spheres are dispersed, often partially buried and sometimes found in isolation. Some lie on plowed fields, moved inadvertently by centuries of agricultural activity, while others rest near riverbanks, as if carefully positioned by their creators in locations now obscured by time and erosion. The spheres of the Taman Peninsula, like the vanished city of Dholavira, remind us of the fragility of human records. They speak to skill, ambition, and intent, yet they provide no voice, no written explanation, no clear narrative. They are silent witnesses to a culture or people whose identity and purpose remain largely unknown. Were these spheres part of a larger ritual landscape, a symbolic language of stone? Or were they pragmatic tools whose context has long since disappeared beneath layers of soil and memory? As we observe the sun glinting off the surfaces of these massive stones, their smooth curves casting long shadows across the plains, we are left with the profound tension between what is visible and what is unknowable. The spheres are both tangible and inscrutable, inviting us to imagine the hands that shaped them, the minds that envisioned them, and the societies that invested time and effort in their creation. In standing among them, one cannot help but reflect on the recurring patterns of history: great human ambition, the skillful manipulation of the environment, and the inevitable loss of context over centuries. Like Dholavira's reservoirs and streets, the spheres are monuments to ingenuity, endurance, and enigma. They remind us that not all mysteries lie in texts or inscriptions. Some are etched directly into the earth, in shapes so precise and deliberate that they continue to confound and captivate long after their creators are gone. And so, as we walk among the giant stone spheres of the Taman Peninsula, the questions endure. Who made them, and why? What methods allowed their precision? Were they tools, symbols, markers, or something we have yet to imagine? The answers remain elusive, leaving only the silent stones themselves, bearing witness to the mysteries of human history and inviting us to wonder what else lies hidden, waiting to be discovered, across landscapes shaped by time, ambition, and imagination. From the windswept plains and silent monoliths of the Taman Peninsula, where human ingenuity has left enigmatic stone spheres that still defy explanation, our journey now turns westward to the quiet countryside of medieval England. In the village of Woolpit, nestled among the rolling hills and fields of Suffolk, a story unfolds unlike any other. A tale of two children whose very appearance challenged the boundaries of the known world, capturing the imagination of historians, folklorists, and curious minds for centuries. These were the green children of Woolpit, mysterious figures whose sudden arrival left questions that remain unanswered to this day. It was during the 12th century, a time of castles, monastic influence, and shifting feudal power, that villagers reportedly discovered the two children near one of Woolpit's many wolf pits, deep conical traps used for hunting. The children, a boy and a girl, were said to have green-hued skin, wore unfamiliar clothing, and spoke a language that no one could understand. Their sudden presence in a rural village, entirely unknown and alien in appearance, would have been astonishing under any circumstances. Their story, recorded in contemporary chronicles such as those by Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh, paints a vivid picture of the bewilderment, caution, and care with which the villagers responded. The girl, reportedly older and more resilient, survived longer, eventually learning to speak English, while the boy died shortly after their discovery. The girl's later accounts, as chronicled centuries ago, describe an origin from a subterranean world illuminated by perpetual twilight, a place entirely distinct from the sunlit lands she had come to inhabit. Such details, while intriguing, have been the subject of much debate. How much was the product of translation errors, imagination, or allegory? And how much might reflect an extraordinary, real event? Modern historians and folklorists have proposed a variety of rational explanations, though none are wholly satisfying. Some suggest that the children were Flemish immigrants or orphans displaced by regional conflicts or famines, their unusual appearance perhaps a result of malnutrition, anemia, or chlorosis, a condition that can give the skin a greenish tint. Others speculate that they may have been suffering from a congenital or metabolic disorder, explaining both their color and their initial inability to speak English. Yet these explanations, while plausible, cannot fully account for the consistent details recorded independently by multiple chroniclers. The uniform green hue, the strange clothing, and the initially incomprehensible language. Folklore and myth offer alternative possibilities, and here the story becomes more enigmatic. Some have interpreted the green children as inhabitants of an underground world, a subterranean society or parallel realm hidden beneath the earth, a motif common in European folklore, echoing tales of hidden realms, fairy folk, and liminal spaces where the laws of ordinary life do not apply. Were the children simply poor, lost travelers whose plight was exaggerated into legend? Or might their story preserve a fragment of oral memory, a window into an extraordinary event refracted through the lens of medieval imagination? Even the environmental and social context of Woolpit adds layers to the mystery. The village was surrounded by deep forests, marshes, and pits, landscapes capable of hiding or isolating those who might otherwise be noticed by wider communities. Could the children have wandered from a distant or isolated settlement? And if so, why did their presence evoke such astonishment and suspicion? Why did chroniclers emphasize the strangeness of their skin color and speech, rather than focusing on more mundane details of origin or family? Speculative theories have ranged from the imaginative to the extraordinary. Some modern interpretations suggest the children may have been part of a forgotten or secretive community, possibly linked to religious heresy, social exile, or hidden practices, explaining both their isolation and distinct customs. Others, more fantastical, propose interdimensional or extraterrestrial origins, a hypothesis often treated with skepticism, yet one that underscores the enduring fascination of the story. Regardless of the lens through which it is examined, the Green Children's Tale challenges conventional understanding, forcing us to question assumptions about human history, perception, and the limits of recorded knowledge. The narrative's persistence over centuries speaks to its resonance with the human mind. We are captivated by the intersection of the ordinary and the inexplicable. Two children appearing suddenly in a small village, living among villagers yet remaining alien, bridging a gap between what is known and what is unknowable. Their story is preserved not in monumental structures or inscriptions, but in chronicles, retellings, and collective memory, a reminder that mystery is not limited to the grand or the monumental, but can also dwell in human encounters, fleeting and fragile, yet capable of leaving a lasting mark. The Green Children also illuminate the cultural and social dynamics of the time. Medieval chroniclers were meticulous in recording unusual occurrences, and the repetition of key details, their green skin, strange language, and clothing, across multiple sources, suggests that the story was more than a single author's invention. At the same time, the narrative blends observation with interpretation, reflecting both the limitations and the creativity of medieval chronicling. Were the details literal, symbolic, or some combination of both? How much was observed, and how much was filtered through expectations of the mysterious or the otherworldly? Standing today in Woolpit, one might imagine the green-tinted children emerging from the wolf pits, uncertain and fearful, and the villagers' reactions, curiosity, caution, and care intertwined. The landscape, with its forests, fields, and hidden depressions, seems to carry echoes of their story, a quiet reminder of the ways in which extraordinary events can emerge, endure, and remain unresolved. Their tale invites us to consider the boundaries between reality and myth, history and legend, and the extraordinary capacity of human memory to preserve mysteries that defy easy explanation. And so, as we reflect on the green children of Woolpit, we confront enduring questions. Who were they, and from where did they come? Was their green skin a sign of disease, a marker of isolation, or a detail preserved in legend to convey strangeness? How did their brief presence in a small English village inspire chronicles that have persisted for centuries? The answers remain elusive, leaving only the story itself, a bridge between ordinary life and the inexplicable, between medieval England and the enduring mystery of the unknown. In the end, the green children stand as a testament to history's capacity to surprise and confound. Like the megaliths of the Taman Peninsula or the silent streets of Dholavira, their story reminds us that the past is never fully knowable. Some mysteries are preserved not in stone or city walls, but in fleeting encounters, whispers of the extraordinary, and narratives that continue to stir curiosity, imagination, and wonder. The green children of Woolpit remain, centuries later, a quiet enigma, challenging us to ask, what other secrets lie hidden in the folds of human history, waiting for those willing to observe, question, and imagine? From the quiet hills of Suffolk, where the green children of Woolpit remain an enduring enigma of human history, our exploration now returns to the deserts of Egypt, where another mystery has lain hidden for millennia. Near the modern village of Hawara, south of the Fayum oasis, lie the remnants of an ancient structure described by classical authors as the Labyrinth, a monumental complex of extraordinary scale and intricate design, whose secrets have been partially lost to time. Unlike the monuments of stone we can still measure and touch, the Labyrinth of Hawara exists in fragments, in textual records, and in the imagination, inviting us to envision a structure both magnificent and elusive. The labyrinth is believed to have been constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat III, around 1800 BC, a period corresponding to the height of Egypt's Middle Kingdom. Classical writers such as Herodotus and Strabo described it as a marvel surpassing even the Great Pyramids, a massive complex of over 3,000 rooms, organized across multiple levels, interwoven with corridors, courtyards, and hidden chambers. Herodotus claimed that it was more beautiful than the pyramids themselves, with walls adorned in stone and hieroglyphs, and that it contained the tombs of pharaohs as well as administrative offices, temples, and libraries of knowledge. The very scale of the structure, if true, is staggering, and yet today, little of it remains visible above ground. Excavations at Hawara in the 19th and 20th centuries uncovered remnants of walls, passageways, and foundations, along with massive stone blocks scattered across the site. These findings suggest that a complex of considerable size did indeed exist, but the labyrinthine arrangement described in classical accounts remains largely speculative. Archaeologists have proposed that what survives is only a fraction of the original structure, much of it buried under centuries of sand, silt, and Nile floods, or dismantled over time for building materials. The discrepancy between the grandeur described in ancient texts and the fragments we can observe today invites further reflection. Was the labyrinth truly as extraordinary as Herodotus claimed? Or has time amplified its legend? Mainstream interpretations suggest the labyrinth served both practical and symbolic purposes. It may have been a mortuary complex for Amenemhat III, complementing his pyramid at Hawara, designed to house royal tombs, mortuary temples, and administrative offices. Its labyrinthine layout could have been intended to protect sacred spaces, discourage tomb robbers, and assert pharaonic authority over both the living and the dead. Yet the practical explanations cannot fully account for the classical emphasis on artistic detail, the number of rooms, or the cultural significance attributed to the complex. Was it truly a functional administrative hub, or was it also intended to awe, mystify, and inspire visitors in a way that transcended utility? Adding to the mystery are the textual inconsistencies and exaggerations in the sources. Herodotus describes the labyrinth as more magnificent than the pyramids, with 12 courts and 3,000 rooms of varying sizes, while Strabo and other writers offer slightly different accounts. No surviving inscriptions or official records from Amenemhat III's reign provide a precise description of the structure. Could these discrepancies reflect exaggeration by classical authors, misinterpretation of Egyptian sources, or the loss of crucial records over time? The ambiguity leaves us relying on fragmentary archaeological evidence and centuries-old descriptions, blending observation with speculation. Fringe theories further complicate the narrative. Some suggest that the labyrinth contained hidden chambers filled with treasures, secret knowledge, or esoteric texts now lost to history. Others propose that its design reflects advanced architectural or geometric principles, possibly connected to celestial alignments or sacred numerology. A few scholars have even suggested that the labyrinth's subterranean passages may extend beyond the visible ruins, forming networks that have yet to be explored, passages that could contain untapped historical or cultural insights. While evidence for these claims is limited, the very possibility keeps the mystery alive, compelling archaeologists and historians to imagine what might still lie buried beneath the sands. The human element of the labyrinth also raises questions. Thousands of laborers, artisans, and administrators would have contributed to its construction, yet we have few records of the people who built it or the lives they led. How did they organize such a vast project with the tools and technologies of the Middle Kingdom? How long did it take to complete, and what challenges, structural, environmental, or logistical, did they face? Each remaining wall and passage is a silent witness to the ambition and ingenuity of a civilization capable of extraordinary feats, yet unwilling or unable to preserve a complete account for future generations. Even the labyrinth's destruction and disappearance are themselves part of the puzzle. Much of the structure may have been dismantled over time for reuse in other buildings, a practice common in Egypt. Flooding from the Nile and centuries of erosion have likely buried or displaced many of its components. And yet, the very notion that a structure of such scale could nearly vanish from the physical landscape, surviving primarily through written accounts, emphasizes both the fragility and the resilience of human memory. We are left piecing together clues from fragments, imagining corridors and chambers from foundations and scattered stones, reconstructing what once existed from traces and echoes. Standing at the site today, one can see only a fraction of what the labyrinth may have been. Stone foundations rise sporadically from the sand, hints of corridors twist beneath the surface, and distant mounds suggest areas yet unexplored. The imagination fills the gaps, envisioning an intricate web of rooms and passageways, courtyards alive with ceremonial activity, and chambers filled with treasures, inscriptions, and the hum of human endeavor. Each fragment is a prompt, a question, a challenge to understand the intentions of those who labored under the sun to create a structure both functional and extraordinary. And so, as we contemplate the lost labyrinth of Hawara, we are reminded that some mysteries endure not because they are simple or obvious, but because they exist at the intersection of ambition, imagination, and time. Was it a grand mortuary complex, a temple of knowledge, or a combination of both? How much remains hidden beneath layers of sand, waiting for rediscovery? The labyrinth challenges us to reconcile historical records with physical evidence, to question what was lost, and to consider the enduring capacity of human ingenuity to create monuments that captivate, confuse, and inspire, long after their creators have passed into history. In the shadows of Hawara, the mystery continues, leaving us to ask, what secrets of architecture, culture, and society still lie buried, waiting for those patient enough to seek them, and how much of history remains hidden beneath the sands of time, known only to those who dared to build, and the whispers of the centuries that followed? From the shadowed corridors and buried mysteries of Hawara, where the Labyrinth once held secrets of pharaonic ambition, our journey now turns to the English countryside, to a quietly enigmatic monument nestled within the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire. There, on a stone panel of the 18th century estate, lies a sequence of letters that has puzzled generations. OUOSVAVV. This is the Shugborough Inscription, a seemingly simple combination of letters whose meaning, origin, and purpose remain shrouded in mystery, inviting both scholarly inquiry and imaginative speculation. The inscription is carved on a stone relief known as the Shepherd's Monument, commissioned by Thomas Anson, 1st Earl of Lichfield, in the mid-18th century. The monument itself features a bas-relief of Nicolas Poussin's painting, Et in Arcadia Ego, depicting shepherds discovering a tomb in the idyllic countryside. Yet it is the adjacent letters, arranged in 2 groups, 5 and 4 letters, that have drawn centuries of attention. Scholars, amateur cryptographers, and visitors alike have tried to decipher their meaning, yet no universally accepted solution exists. The letters appear ordinary, yet their deliberate placement suggests an encoded message, a puzzle intended to intrigue, conceal, or commemorate. Historical context offers some possibilities. Thomas Anson was an educated man, well-traveled and familiar with the intellectual currents of Europe. The mid-18th century was a period rife with secret societies, codes, and fascination with classical antiquity. The monument itself references a classical painting, invoking themes of mortality, discovery, and reflection. Could the letters relate to a personal message, a family motto, or a reference to a lost artifact or hidden treasure? Were they intended as a moral allegory, a playful riddle, or a symbolic representation of a philosophical idea? Each of these explanations is plausible, yet none has been proven. Cryptographic analyses have produced a variety of interpretations. Some suggest the letters are an anagram, encoding a Latin phrase, a cipher, or a key to a location. Others propose they relate to the Holy Grail or the Knights Templar, drawing connections to broader esoteric traditions and legends popular in 18th century Europe. These theories, while captivating, often rely on circumstantial connections, leaving the actual intent of the monument open to debate. Unlike historical documents with explanatory inscriptions, the Shugborough letters provide no context, forcing us to reconstruct meaning solely from surrounding symbols, historical context, and conjecture. Mainstream historians often caution against overreach. They suggest the letters may represent a private or personal code, perhaps known only to the Anson family or the sculptor of the monument. Some posit that the letters are initials, representing names or titles significant to the commissioner. Others view the inscription as an intellectual curiosity of the Enlightenment, a playful challenge designed to stimulate conversation and reflection, rather than to conceal a profound secret. Even in this restrained view, the very existence of the letters demonstrates a deliberate intent to provoke curiosity, to engage observers across generations. Speculation becomes more intriguing when considering the relationship between the inscription and Poussin's painting. Et in Arcadia Ego depicts shepherds discovering a tomb, a meditation on mortality and the inevitability of death. The letters, carved on the monument, appear to echo this theme of hidden meaning, discovery, and reflection. Could they represent a philosophical statement, a memento mori encoded in cipher? Or were they meant to guide the viewer toward a deeper understanding, a secret known only to a select few? The juxtaposition of image and letters invites contemplation, suggesting that the code is as much about interpretation as it is about literal meaning. Fringe theories have expanded the range of possibilities. Some propose that the inscription marks the location of hidden treasure, possibly related to Templar or Grail legends, though there is no archaeological evidence to support such claims. Others argue for connections to esoteric knowledge, alchemical symbolism, or even Masonic influence, highlighting the cultural fascination with secrecy and coded messages in 18th century England. While these ideas remain speculative, they illustrate the enduring magnetism of the monument and the human desire to uncover hidden meaning where none may explicitly exist. The Shugborough inscription also highlights the enduring tension between visibility and mystery. Unlike pyramids or megaliths, the letters are small, precise, and intentionally conspicuous, yet their purpose eludes observation. Visitors can see them, study them, and measure them, but the meaning remains elusive, preserved in ambiguity. This interplay between accessibility and opacity, the letters carved into plain view yet leaving questions unanswered, embodies a uniquely human fascination, the urge to decode, to interpret, and to understand what others intended for our discovery. Even centuries after their creation, the letters continue to inspire investigation. Cryptographers, historians, and enthusiasts have applied methods ranging from simple anagrams to complex ciphers, from linguistic analysis to speculative historical reconstruction. None have produced a definitive solution. The Shugborough letters persist as a puzzle in plain sight, challenging assumptions about secrecy, intention, and human creativity. They are simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, a series of symbols that invites profound questions without providing closure. Standing before the Shepherd's Monument today, one is struck by the contrast between its serene pastoral imagery and the enigmatic letters beside it. The monument, like the lost labyrinths, vanished cities, and hidden codes explored earlier in this journey, exemplifies a human desire to create enduring mystery, to encode ideas that transcend time. We are drawn to observe, to question, and to imagine the mind that conceived the letters, the intentions behind their placement, and the cultural context that made such a puzzle possible. And so, the Shugborough inscription remains unsolved. Were these letters a playful cipher, a coded moral message, a commemoration, or a deliberate enigma designed to capture attention across centuries? What knowledge, personal history, or philosophical insight might they conceal, now lost to time? Like the labyrinths of Hawara or the green children of Woolpit, the letters challenge our understanding of history, leaving us with a silent code that speaks across the ages, inviting contemplation, interpretation, and wonder. The mystery endures, waiting for those willing to study, to measure, and to imagine what might still be hidden. The Shugborough inscription is more than a puzzle. It is a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and the persistent allure of the unknown, a reminder that history is not always a ledger of facts, but also a canvas for questions that continue to captivate the imagination. From the silent ciphers of Shugborough Hall, where letters carved into stone defy understanding across centuries, our journey now moves across the Mediterranean to a turbulent epoch in the Late Bronze Age. Around 1200 BC, coastal cities from Egypt to Anatolia and the Levant were shaken by a series of sudden invasions. Contemporary records speak of formidable raiders, the enigmatic Sea Peoples, whose attacks disrupted trade, toppled kingdoms, and reshaped the region. Yet despite their profound impact, their origins remain one of history's most persistent mysteries. Who were they, and where did they come from? Egyptian inscriptions provide our earliest accounts. Pharaoh Ramesses III, in a detailed depiction at Medinet Habu, portrays the Sea Peoples as a coalition of maritime invaders, warriors arriving in fleets, armed with round shields and distinctive helmets, their ships cutting through the waves like shadows of menace. Ramesses claims to have defeated them, but his records, while rich in detail, offer no clues about their homeland. Were these invaders from the Aegean, the Western Mediterranean, Anatolia, or some lost island now erased from memory? Every proposed origin raises new questions, yet none resolves the fundamental enigma. Archaeological evidence adds both clarity and confusion. Across sites in the Levant, Greece, and Turkey, layers of destruction and sudden abandonment correspond to the period of the Sea People's raids. Cities such as Ugarit, Hattusa, and others show burned walls and disrupted settlements, suggesting violent upheaval. Pottery, weaponry, and ship models hint at a maritime culture with advanced seafaring skills. Yet, these clues are fragmented. Without written records from the invaders themselves, we can only speculate about their social organization, culture, and the homeland that nurtured such a coalition of raiders. Mainstream theories suggest the Sea Peoples may have been displaced populations fleeing famine, drought, or social upheaval. Some propose they originated from regions affected by seismic activity or climate change, forcing migration and confrontation with established powers. Others link them to the collapse of the Mycenaean civilization in Greece, pointing to parallels in weaponry, armor, and naval capability. These explanations, while plausible, remain circumstantial, leaving the question of identity unresolved. If they were refugees, why did they organize such coordinated and devastating assaults? What motivated them to cross such distances, risking the might of powerful kingdoms like Egypt? Some scholars have focused on linguistic and iconographic clues. Egyptian reliefs name groups among the Sea Peoples: Peliset, Jeker, Denyen, and Shekelesh. Yet these names are often difficult to trace to known regions with certainty. Could Peliset, for example, represent early Philistines migrating from the Aegean? Could Shekelesh point to Sicily? Or are these names mistranslations or symbolic labels assigned by Egyptian scribes? Each possibility opens further avenues of speculation, but no definitive answer, emphasizing the enduring opacity of this mysterious maritime confederation. Fringe theories extend the mystery beyond conventional archaeology. Some propose connections to lost civilizations or cultures wiped out by climate catastrophe, suggesting the Sea Peoples were the last remnants of societies we now cannot identify. Others entertain ideas of proto-ethnic coalitions, alliances of displaced sailors who joined under necessity rather than shared origin, moving along the Mediterranean as opportunistic raiders. While these interpretations cannot be confirmed, they highlight the scale of the puzzle. We have records of their actions, evidence of destruction, but almost nothing to reveal their roots, language, or culture. The impact of the Sea Peoples, however, is undeniable. They are credited with contributing to the collapse of the Hittite Empire, destabilizing city-states in the Levant, and altering the geopolitical landscape of the eastern Mediterranean. Trade networks were disrupted, coastal cities abandoned, and political power shifted. Yet even as they left these traces, they themselves vanished into obscurity. Unlike the civilizations they confronted, no inscriptions, settlements, or monuments of the Sea Peoples have been definitively identified. Their homeland, the source of their seafaring expertise and military prowess, remains lost to history. Modern research has attempted to triangulate their origins using multiple lines of evidence: skeletal analysis, settlement patterns, material culture, and maritime archaeology. Scholars examine weaponry styles, fortification patterns, and artistic motifs to trace cultural connections, yet the evidence is fragmented and often contradictory. Some point to Aegean affinities, others to Western Anatolian roots, while a few suggest a composite origin, a coalition of displaced peoples, each bringing their own regional traditions to the raids. What is clear is that the Sea Peoples were not a single homogeneous culture, but rather a network of maritime groups united by circumstance, opportunity, or necessity. Despite extensive investigation, the mystery endures. How could such a decisive force leave so few traces of its own origin while reshaping the civilizations it encountered? Was their homeland destroyed, submerged, or simply unrecorded? Could it have been an island or coastal region now lost to rising seas, seismic shifts, or centuries of human transformation? Every plausible theory raises more questions than answers, echoing the same tension we have observed with other historical enigmas, from the Shugborough letters to the Labyrinth of Hawara. Standing today on the shores of the eastern Mediterranean, we imagine the fleets of the sea peoples approaching distant coasts, their ships bristling with warriors, their motives partially understood and partially lost to the tides of history. Their story reminds us that some of the most profound mysteries are those of origin, where a people began, what shaped them, and how they came to interact with history in ways that leave both impact and absence. And so, as we reflect on the unknown homeland of the sea peoples, we are confronted with a paradox. They were capable of altering civilizations, yet they themselves disappeared into the fog of prehistory. What lands nurtured their skills, beliefs, and social cohesion? What circumstances forced their journey, and why have they left no permanent record of their existence outside the accounts of those they encountered? The mystery endures, beckoning us to search further, to analyze more, and to wonder how many more secrets of human migration, conflict, and adaptation remain hidden beneath the waves of time. The sea people's homeland remains unseen, a blank page in the annals of history, inviting curiosity, imagination, and relentless inquiry. And in that void, we are reminded that history is not only a record of what is known, but also a canvas of the unknown, filled with peoples, places, and events that challenge our understanding and inspire us to keep seeking, questioning, and wondering. From the turbulent seas and elusive origins of the sea peoples, whose homeland remains hidden beneath the waves of prehistory, we journey eastward across continents and millennia to the heart of ancient China. There, on the plains near modern Xi'an in Shanxi province, lies a monumental earthen mound, the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. While the vast site is famous worldwide for its terracotta army, the inner tomb, the emperor's final resting place, remains untouched, its secrets concealed beneath layers of soil, wood, and time. What lies within this sealed chamber has inspired fascination, speculation, and careful restraint for over 2,000 years. Qin Shi Huang ascended to power in 221 BC, declaring himself the first emperor after uniting the warring states into a single empire. Historical texts, particularly the records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian, describe his tomb as a city in miniature, reflecting the vastness of his empire. The mausoleum complex covers more than 56 square kilometers, including ceremonial platforms, palace structures, rivers, and pits filled with life-sized terracotta soldiers, chariots, and horses, arranged as if guarding the emperor in perpetuity. Yet these outer displays, remarkable though they are, may represent only a fraction of the ambition embodied within the sealed inner tomb. Classical accounts describe extraordinary precautions and elaborate engineering within the inner chamber. Sima Qian writes of mercury rivers, flowing lakes, and celestial models that mirror the heavens above, all constructed to protect and preserve the emperor in death. Archaeological surveys have detected anomalously high levels of mercury in areas corresponding to the supposed tomb chamber, suggesting that ancient builders may indeed have incorporated liquid mercury into the design. But these measures, while astonishing, raise further questions. How was such a sophisticated system envisioned and executed? And why, after 2 millennia, does it remain untouched, preserving both its construction and its mysteries? Excavations around the mound began in the 20th century, revealing the terracotta army and associated pits, yet the inner tomb remains deliberately sealed. Modern technology, including ground-penetrating radar, magnetometry, and remote sensing, has been applied cautiously, revealing potential chambers and architectural complexity, but no excavation has penetrated the burial chamber itself. The reasons are both practical and ethical. Chinese authorities, archaeologists, and preservationists fear damage to the tomb's structure and the possibility of chemical hazards, particularly from mercury. This restraint preserves the enigma, leaving the inner sanctum as one of the world's most compelling unsolved archaeological puzzles. Mainstream interpretations emphasize the tomb's symbolic and political significance. Qin Shi Huang's reign was defined by centralization, monumental construction, and the projection of imperial authority. The mausoleum, then, can be understood as a microcosm of the empire, an eternal assertion of power, order, and divine connection. The terracotta figures serve both as protection and as representation of the emperor's earthly dominion. Yet these explanations focus on observable elements. They cannot fully address the inner chamber's contents. What treasures, texts, or symbolic artifacts were placed alongside the emperor, and why did the builders go to such extreme lengths to safeguard them? Speculative theories add further layers of intrigue. Some suggest the inner chamber contains not only the emperor's remains, but a wealth of treasures, ritual objects, and perhaps texts that could illuminate the political, technological, and spiritual life of early imperial China. Others have imagined intricate traps or mechanisms designed to thwart tomb robbers or deter curiosity, possibly employing chemical or structural hazards. While such notions cannot be verified without direct access, they reflect both the ambition of the first emperor and the human fascination with what is deliberately hidden from view. Cultural and historical context deepens the mystery. Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with immortality, commissioning elixirs, expeditions, and constructions designed to transcend death. The tomb itself may represent a culmination of this obsession, merging earthly representation, celestial symbolism, and ritual significance. In this sense, the inner chamber is not merely a grave. It is a statement about life, death, and authority, encoded in architecture, materials, and layout. How did the builders reconcile practical construction with symbolic meaning? How much knowledge, now lost, guided their work, and how much was innovation at the edge of contemporary capability? Even modern investigations confront the limits of observation. Archaeologists can survey, measure, and model the tomb complex, but they cannot open the central chamber without risking irreparable damage. This restraint preserves not only the physical integrity of the site, but also the tension between knowledge and imagination. Each new study reveals tantalizing hints: anomalies in magnetic readings, irregularities in soil composition, and the traces of possible underground structures. Yet these clues are incomplete, leaving the inner tomb both present and invisible, a mystery defined by what is withheld as much as by what is observed. The human dimension of the tomb is also compelling. Thousands of artisans, laborers, and engineers worked under imperial mandate to realize a vision of unparalleled scale. They transported massive stones, molded terracotta, and crafted detailed representations of soldiers, horses, and chariots. Their labor, skill, and coordination speak to a society capable of extraordinary feats of organization and ingenuity. And yet, we know little of their names, lives, or personal experiences, just as we know little of the emperor's final intentions within the inner chamber. Time has preserved the physical evidence but erased the voices behind it, leaving only the silent mound as testimony. Standing today on the mound, one can imagine the layers of earth, the sealed chambers, and the treasures that may lie within. We can envision the emperor reclining amidst symbolic rivers, celestial maps, and guards of terracotta, as if orchestrating an empire that stretches into eternity. And yet we also confront the impossibility of certainty. Every hypothesis, every measured anomaly, and every historical account points to complexity, but none reveals the full truth. The tomb is a threshold between the known and the unknown, a reminder of the limits of observation and the enduring allure of hidden knowledge. And so, as we reflect on Qin Shi Huang's untouchable inner chamber, we are left with a profound question. What did the first emperor envision for his afterlife, and what treasures, symbols, or knowledge did he entrust to the earth? How much of history remains preserved in this sealed tomb, waiting patiently beneath layers of soil, waiting for those patient and careful enough to uncover it without disturbing its mysteries? The mound stands not only as a monument to imperial ambition, but as an enduring enigma, a silent invitation to wonder, to study, and to imagine what still lies hidden beneath the surface of history. From the silent, earthen chambers of Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum, where a first emperor's ambition has remained sealed for over 2 millennia, we now turn our gaze across the Mediterranean to another artifact whose presence continues to astonish and perplex: the Antikythera mechanism. Discovered in 1901 off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, this corroded bronze device, now partially reconstructed, reveals a level of mechanical sophistication that seems to leap across time. Yet, as remarkable as the surviving mechanism is, much of its story remains missing, literally and figuratively. Scholars have long wondered whether the device we recovered is only a fragment of a larger suite of companion instruments, hinting at technological knowledge that may have been far more advanced than previously imagined. The Antikythera mechanism was retrieved from a Roman-era shipwreck dated to around 60 to 50 BC. When first examined, it appeared as a mass of corroded bronze plates and gears, incomprehensible to early 20th century eyes. X-ray imaging, advanced 3D scans, and careful study over the past century revealed that it is an astronomical calculator, capable of predicting eclipses, tracking planetary cycles, and modeling the irregular orbit of the moon using an intricate system of interlocking gears. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The precision of the gears, the calibration of astronomical cycles, and the clarity of inscriptions demonstrate a level of engineering thought that would not be seen again in Europe for more than 1,000 years. Yet despite the brilliance of what survives, a deeper mystery remains. Was this mechanism a solitary instrument, or part of a broader network of companion devices? Ancient references to complex astronomical machines suggest that the Antikythera mechanism may not have been unique. Cicero, for example, mentions mechanical devices used to track celestial movements, and later sources hint at instruments capable of predicting eclipses, seasons, and even calendrical events across the Greek and Hellenistic world. Could the Antikythera mechanism we recovered represent a fragment of a workshop's collection, a portable device among many, or the centerpiece of a system designed to observe, calculate, and teach the cosmos? Archaeological context adds further intrigue. The shipwreck contained amphorae, luxury goods, and fragments of other bronze artifacts, suggesting a cargo of high-value items, perhaps commissioned for a wealthy patron or scholar. The mechanism may have been intended as part of a scientific library at sea, a traveling workshop, or even a set of interconnected devices each designed to perform specialized calculations. If so, what else might have been lost in the depths? Could there have been instruments dedicated to more precise planetary motion, lunar phases, or even tidal predictions, each complementing the surviving device? Mainstream scholarship emphasizes that, while the mechanism is extraordinary, the absence of additional examples may reflect the rarity of such technology. Gearing of this precision was difficult to produce, requiring skilled artisans, advanced metallurgy, and sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. If companion devices existed, they may have been destroyed, lost at sea, or recycled in antiquity, a practice common in the Roman world, where bronze was valuable and easily melted down. Yet the question remains, how many instruments, designed to observe, calculate, and simulate the heavens, might have existed before being scattered to history? The inscriptions on the mechanism itself hint at broader applications. Greek text engraved on the surviving fragments contains instructions for predicting eclipses, identifying zodiacal positions, and calculating lunar phases. The complexity of these instructions implies that the user was expected to operate multiple functions, possibly in conjunction with additional apparatus. Was there a master control, a companion dial, or even a mechanical planetarium awaiting its counterpart? If so, what would this larger system reveal about Hellenistic knowledge, their understanding of astronomy, and the ambition of scientists or engineers of the era? Speculative theories extend the mystery even further. Some suggest that the device's precision could imply a lost tradition of technological knowledge, perhaps transmitted through workshops, schools, or private collections, which vanished after the fall of Hellenistic centers of learning. Could the mechanism represent the tip of an iceberg of scientific instrumentation that once existed in multiple forms across the Mediterranean, only to be erased by war, neglect, or natural disaster? Others entertain the idea that companion devices might have included mechanical models of the planets themselves, celestial globes, or tools for predicting long-term astronomical cycles now lost to us. While these remain conjecture, they underscore the tantalizing possibility that human ingenuity in antiquity may have reached heights we are only beginning to glimpse. The human story behind the mechanism is equally compelling. Who designed it, and what knowledge guided their calculations? Did Greek mathematicians collaborate with engineers in constructing these devices, translating abstract astronomical theory into physical gears and levers? How did users operate the mechanism, as a teaching tool, a navigational instrument, or a device for predicting celestial events with practical or ritual significance? And if other companion devices existed, were they held in private collections, lost at sea, or displayed in the courts of kings, their designs as intricate as the surviving mechanism? Modern technological advances allow us to peer more closely than ever into the mechanism's inner workings. CT scans reveal gear trains and inscriptions previously invisible, allowing reconstruction of its functions with remarkable fidelity. Yet every revelation reinforces what is missing. The surviving fragments show the device's potential, but not its totality. The gaps in the mechanism, missing gears, partial dials, and worn inscriptions, are reminders that the story is incomplete. Like a musical composition with entire sections erased, we can glimpse patterns, hear echoes, and imagine the full scope, yet the original remains elusive. Standing today in a laboratory or museum, observing the Antikythera mechanism through X-ray imaging or digital reconstruction, one cannot help but wonder about what remains unseen. Were there companion devices designed to extend its capabilities, instruments lost to time yet capable of calculations more precise than anything in the surviving model? Could an entire network of Hellenistic devices have existed, measuring, predicting, and demonstrating celestial phenomena in ways that challenge our assumptions about technological progress? Each unanswered question underscores the enigma of human ingenuity and the fragments that remain as evidence. And so, as we reflect on the Antikythera mechanism and its missing companions, we confront a profound question. What knowledge was once encoded in bronze, gears, and dials, only to vanish beneath centuries of neglect, shipwrecks, and lost records? How advanced was Hellenistic technology, and how much remains hidden in the depths of the Mediterranean or the recesses of human history? The mechanism stands as both evidence and enigma, a tangible artifact revealing the sophistication of ancient minds, yet hinting at a larger story we have yet to recover. The Antikythera mechanism is more than an ancient calculator. It is a gateway into the ambitions, skills, and mysteries of a world that existed 2 millennia ago. Its missing companion devices, if they ever existed, remain hidden, their absence an invitation to curiosity, imagination, and further discovery. In the corroded bronze and surviving gears, we glimpse human creativity reaching extraordinary heights. And yet, like so many mysteries we have explored, from the sea peoples to the tombs of emperors, the full story remains concealed, waiting for those patient, observant, and daring enough to seek it. From the gears and lost companions of the Antikythera mechanism, which hint at advanced Hellenistic engineering long vanished beneath the Mediterranean waves, our exploration now shifts to a very different type of Roman ingenuity, one that has endured for millennia in plain sight: the strange, almost miraculous concrete that outlasted empires. Along the coasts of the Mediterranean, from the harbor of Caesarea in Palestine to the harbors of southern Italy, we can still see structures standing strong after more than 2,000 years, resisting waves, weather, and seismic activity that have claimed far younger modern constructions. How did the Romans create a material that seems to defy time itself? And why has much of the knowledge behind it been lost? Roman concrete, or opus caementitium, was unlike anything the world had seen. It was a mixture of lime, volcanic ash, and aggregates, sometimes including pieces of brick or tufa. Yet this simple recipe produced structures of extraordinary resilience. Harbors, aqueducts, bridges, and amphitheaters remain intact in locations where steel-reinforced modern concrete crumbles in decades. The Portus Cosinus breakwater, the Pantheon in Rome, and the seawalls along the Levantine coast testify to this remarkable longevity. Unlike the terracotta and bronze mechanisms of Greece, which require careful preservation, Roman concrete seems almost eternal, standing against centuries of erosion and earthquakes. Modern science has tried to understand this durability. Researchers have discovered that the volcanic ash used by Roman engineers contains reactive minerals that interact with water to form new crystalline structures over time. In marine environments, for example, seawater triggers chemical reactions that actually strengthen the concrete, creating a self-healing effect. Yet despite these insights, the Romans' full understanding of the material remains elusive. How did they determine the exact mix of ingredients, the particle size of volcanic ash, or the precise curing process? Did their knowledge arise from careful experimentation, trial and error, or perhaps a lost tradition of craftsmanship handed down through generations of builders? The scale of Roman concrete projects also raises questions. Consider the massive piers and breakwaters of Caesarea in Palestine, commissioned by Herod the Great in the 1st century BC. These structures required tens of thousands of tons of concrete, poured into wooden forms and reinforced with stone and volcanic ash. How did engineers of that era coordinate such massive works without modern machinery, cranes, or mixers? How did they predict the long-term behavior of materials submerged in seawater for centuries? The survival of these structures suggests both sophisticated engineering knowledge and practical experience. Yet so much of it has been lost. Some scholars argue that Roman concrete was a blend of science and art, developed through empirical observation rather than theoretical knowledge. Builders likely experimented with different sources of ash, lime, and aggregates, observing which combinations best resisted cracking, erosion, or the pressures of massive loads. In this sense, the material embodies a kind of practical genius, a technology born from necessity and refined over centuries. Yet the precise recipes were not written down in ways that survived, leaving modern engineers and chemists to reconstruct them centuries later from fragments and chemical analysis. The mystery deepens when considering regional variations. Concrete used in the Mediterranean may differ significantly from that in inland structures or northern provinces. volcanic ash from Pozzuoli, near Naples, behaves differently than the local aggregates found in Palestine or the Levant? Did Roman engineers adapt their formulas to local materials, or did they import key ingredients across the empire? Were certain mixtures considered secret knowledge, passed only among master builders? And if such expertise existed, why did it disappear after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, leaving a gap of centuries before similar durability could be achieved in modern construction? Fringe theories and speculative reconstructions have added to the allure of Roman concrete. Some suggest that ancient builders may have understood subtle chemical principles, pozzolanic reactions, carbonation, and mineral crystallization that were effectively lost until rediscovered in the modern era. Others propose that experimental techniques, perhaps even rituals or symbolic practices, guided the mixing and curing processes, embedding knowledge in craft rather than written text. While these remain conjecture, they underscore the enduring mystery. Roman concrete was not merely functional. It was an engineering marvel that somehow slipped from human memory. The endurance of Roman concrete also contrasts with the impermanence of other contemporary technologies. Bronze statues, wooden harbors, and complex devices like the Antikythera mechanism have largely vanished, yet Roman concrete structures persist, reshaped by natural processes but fundamentally intact. Why did some technologies endure, while others disappeared entirely? How did a civilization capable of producing sophisticated machinery also lose knowledge of a material whose chemical and structural properties were so advanced? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach, hidden beneath layers of stone, sand, and time. The human effort behind Roman concrete is also profound. Thousands of laborers quarried stones, mixed ash and lime, and poured massive forms. Master builders, engineers, and surveyors orchestrated enormous projects with precision and foresight. They balanced materials, anticipated environmental stresses, and executed designs that would survive millennia. And yet, like the mysteries of the Sea Peoples or the Antikythera mechanism, the names, techniques, and experiences of those individuals have largely disappeared, leaving only the silent testament of enduring walls and piers. Standing on the edge of a Roman harbor, watching the waves crash against a 2,000-year-old seawall, it is impossible not to feel awe. The structure resists the erosive power of the sea, its internal chemistry quietly reacting, healing, and maintaining the integrity of stone and mortar. It is a reminder of human ingenuity, persistence, and the ways in which knowledge can endure, sometimes without explanation. And yet, it also challenges us to ask what has been lost. How much expertise, observation, and practical wisdom did the Romans possess that is now irretrievable? How many techniques and principles lie hidden in fragments of text, oral tradition, or chemical signatures, waiting for rediscovery? Roman concrete reminds us that history is as much about what survives as what has vanished. The structures themselves are enduring clues, yet the knowledge of how they were made remains partly a mystery. They force us to contemplate human innovation in both its brilliance and its fragility. Civilizations rise, empires fall, yet some creations persist, speaking silently across millennia. And so, as we reflect on the strange concrete that outlived empires, we are confronted with a question that echoes across the mysteries we have explored. How much human knowledge has been lost to time, and how many secrets of craftsmanship, chemistry, and construction lie hidden, waiting to be understood? The Roman material endures not only as a practical marvel, but as a symbol of ingenuity and the enigmatic ways human creations can outlive their creators, leaving us to wonder what other extraordinary technologies and techniques have slipped beneath the surface of history, silent yet waiting for rediscovery. From the enduring walls of Roman concrete, structures that have withstood waves, earthquakes, and millennia, we now turn our attention to a desert where endurance and survival take on a far more precarious dimension. the Egyptian sands. Here, in the vast expanse of the Sahara, lies one of history's most haunting enigmas: the lost army of Cambyses II, the Persian ruler who, around 524 BC, attempted an audacious invasion of Egypt's western desert and seemingly vanished without a trace. The story, preserved in fragments of ancient texts and shrouded in the unforgiving terrain of the Egyptian deserts, has puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. What became of this army, and why does the desert appear to have swallowed it entirely? Cambyses II, the son of Cyrus the Great, was ambitious and relentless. After securing control over Egypt, he sought to extend Persian dominance further west into the mysterious and scarcely mapped regions of the Libyan desert. Herodotus recounts that Cambyses dispatched an army of perhaps 50,000 men, laden with supplies and equipped to face the harshest of conditions. The army's mission was to conquer the oasis-rich lands, subdue nomadic tribes, and expand the empire's reach. Yet the reports indicate that the venture ended in catastrophe. According to Herodotus, the army vanished into the sands, their fate unknown, leaving only speculation, traces of camps, and a growing legend of disappearance. The desert that claimed them is relentless. Temperatures swing wildly, sandstorms can obliterate tracks in minutes, and water sources are scarce, often unreliable. Logistically, even a modern expedition would struggle to move tens of thousands of men and animals across such terrain. How did Cambyses' generals plan for such a journey? Did they underestimate the sheer difficulty of crossing hundreds of kilometers of sand and rock, or were they misled by inaccurate maps and faulty intelligence? Ancient texts suggest that the army was stranded without water, possibly consumed by thirst and disorientation, yet no mass grave or identifiable remains have been conclusively discovered. Archaeological investigations have yielded tantalizing but incomplete evidence. Remote surveys have identified traces of ancient encampments and stone markers, suggesting temporary halts along the route, yet nothing definitively confirms the army's path or final resting place. Desert sands shift constantly, erasing footprints and collapsing fragile structures. Could entire units of the army have been buried beneath dunes, preserved only in fragments, waiting for the right moment or the right expedition to uncover them? Or did they simply disperse into the desert, succumbing gradually to exposure, starvation, and the harsh, unrelenting environment? Mainstream historians often emphasize environmental and logistical explanations. The army, operating far from established supply lines and in uncharted terrain, likely succumbed to the combination of heat, dehydration, and exhaustion. Yet even this explanation raises questions. Cambyses' campaign was carefully prepared according to some sources, with camels and supplies intended to sustain the force. How, then, could such a well-equipped army disappear entirely, leaving no reliable record of their fate? Could the accounts of Herodotus be exaggerated, or do they reflect a kernel of truth about the desert's lethal power and the limitations of even the most meticulously planned military expedition? Speculative theories expand the range of possibilities. Some propose that the army encountered a sandstorm so massive it buried men and animals alive, leaving only shifting dunes as evidence. Others suggest an ambush or attack by desert tribes, though logistical plausibility remains debated. Another hypothesis involves an unexpected natural event: seismic activity, sudden flooding of ephemeral desert wadis, or even the collapse of ancient subterranean aquifers, creating treacherous terrain that the army could not traverse. Each theory underscores the uncertainty inherent in the story, a combination of natural forces, human miscalculation, and historical ambiguity. The human dimension of the army's disappearance is particularly compelling. Tens of thousands of men, trained and equipped for conquest, entrusted their survival to generals and maps, yet faced a landscape they could neither dominate nor predict. How did individuals experience the march? Daily exposure to heat, sand, and scarcity, the psychological strain of marching into an unknown wasteland, and the creeping awareness that death could come from any direction. Even without definitive remains, one can imagine the desperation, disorientation, and courage required to survive, however briefly, in such conditions. The desert became both a stage for ambition and a silent arbiter of fate. Fringe theories have occasionally pushed the mystery even further. Some propose that the army ventured into unexplored subterranean regions of the desert, disappearing into networks of caves or ancient mining tunnels. Others suggest that they may have merged with nomadic tribes, their identities absorbed into local populations, leaving behind no distinct trace. While these ideas are speculative, they illustrate the depth of fascination with an army that, unlike most historical disasters, left no clear archaeological record and has persisted in the imagination for millennia. Standing today in the harsh expanse of the Egyptian desert, one is struck by the contrast between ambition and environment, preparation and chaos, history and legend. The dunes, stretching endlessly toward the horizon, seem almost indifferent to human enterprise, swallowing evidence and erasing paths with each gust of wind. The fate of Cambyses' army is a stark reminder of nature's power, the fragility of human planning, and the mysteries that arise when historical accounts confront the unforgiving reality of the world. And so, as we reflect on the lost army of Cambyses II, we are confronted with profound questions. Did they perish entirely, buried beneath sand and time, or were some survivors absorbed into distant communities, leaving only subtle traces in oral tradition? Were they overcome by natural forces alone, or did other human factors, miscalculation, internal dissent, or unrecorded skirmishes, play a role? And, most hauntingly, what stories, knowledge, and experiences vanished with them, lost to the desert's silence? The disappearance of Cambyses' army endures not only as a historical puzzle, but as a testament to the limits of ambition in the face of nature. The Egyptian sands, at once beautiful and brutal, hold their secrets tightly, inviting us to wonder, to explore, and to imagine what remains hidden beneath shifting dunes. What echoes of human endeavor lie buried, waiting for discovery, interpretation, or perhaps eternal oblivion. From the shifting sands that may have swallowed Cambyses II's army, we now turn our gaze northward to the rugged plains of central Anatolia, where another mystery lies not in disappearance from the land, but disappearance from memory, the lost archives of Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire. Perched upon rocky hills and encircled by formidable walls, Hattusa was the political, religious, and cultural heart of a civilization that flourished between roughly 1600 BC and 1200 BC. Today, the city's ruins evoke grandeur and sophistication. Massive gates adorned with lion reliefs, labyrinthine streets, and temples echoing with ceremonies long silenced. Yet for all the evidence of its power and scale, the vast administrative and legal records that once chronicled the Hittite world have vanished, leaving tantalizing gaps in our understanding of one of the ancient Near East's greatest empires. The Hittites were renowned not only for their military prowess but for their administrative sophistication. They maintained extensive written records on clay tablets, inscribed in cuneiform script, documenting treaties, laws, correspondence, and economic transactions. These archives, according to surviving references, were kept in the royal palace and temples, meticulously organized and carefully guarded. Modern excavations have uncovered fragments of such records, scattered in different layers, yet the bulk of what must once have been a comprehensive bureaucratic system appears to have disappeared in the empire's final decades. How could a civilization capable of such precise record-keeping see the vast majority of its documentation vanish? Hattusa itself is a city of stone and labyrinthine design. Massive fortifications rise along the hills, dotted with gates like the Lion Gate and the King's Gate, themselves adorned with bas-reliefs meant to intimidate intruders. Within these walls, archaeologists have found the remains of royal palaces, storage rooms, and sanctuaries, as well as hundreds of clay tablets, some beautifully preserved, others fragmented. Yet when historians attempt to reconstruct the daily workings of Hattusa, the vast archives that could illuminate economic systems, legal precedents, diplomatic relations, and religious practice are mostly absent. What happened to the bulk of the empire's written record? Was it destroyed intentionally, swept away during conquest, or simply lost to time? Mainstream explanations focus on the period of the Hittite collapse, around 1200 BC, during the broader turmoil of the Late Bronze Age. Invasions, internal rebellions, famine, and drought may have contributed to the disintegration of centralized authority. In such a context, records could have been burned to prevent them from falling into enemy hands, abandoned as the administrative system collapsed, or deliberately hidden in caches that remain undiscovered. Even today, many tablets are found outside of their original contexts, eroded, broken, or removed from their storage locations by natural events or human activity over millennia. The disappearance of the archives thus reflects both historical upheaval and the fragility of material culture. Yet, the mystery deepens when considering the organization and sophistication of the surviving fragments. The Hittites had treaties with neighboring powers, including Egypt, Babylon, and the Mycenaean Greeks. They documented trade, resource distribution, and military campaigns. Some surviving texts reveal extensive correspondence with vassal states and city-states, and even instructions for ritual practices. These fragments hint at the breadth of a bureaucratic empire whose complexity rivals that of later civilizations. If such detailed documentation survived only in fragments, what knowledge and insight might be forever lost? How much of Hittite political, economic, and religious thought remains hidden, waiting beneath rubble or buried under centuries of sediment? Speculative theories expand the intrigue. Some scholars have suggested that the destruction of Hattusa's archives may have been more than accidental or circumstantial. Could rival factions within the empire have deliberately purged records to erase evidence of political maneuvering? Might invading forces have targeted the archives as a way to suppress Hittite knowledge, preventing the next generation from reconstructing power? There are even suggestions that certain records were intentionally concealed in hidden chambers or underground repositories, never to be retrieved. If so, could some of these lost archives still lie beneath the ruins, sealed against time, waiting for modern archaeology to uncover them? The Hittites were also deeply concerned with ritual and divine sanction. Their archives were not merely bureaucratic. They encoded religious knowledge, omens, and calendrical data, potentially serving as guides for both governance and spiritual practice. The loss of these records is thus a loss not only of administrative detail, but also of cultural and religious understanding. Did the disappearance of the archives fundamentally obscure the Hittites' worldview, leaving us to interpret their monuments and inscriptions without the context that once made them fully intelligible? The absence of comprehensive documentation makes every discovery tantalizing yet incomplete. Technological limitations of preservation also played a role. While some clay tablets survived due to accidental firing or the durability of baked clay, many documents may have been written on perishable materials, papyrus, wood, or leather. Such records are far more vulnerable to time, moisture, and human interference. Could entire volumes of correspondence, financial accounts, or royal decrees have perished simply because they were made from fragile materials, their memory preserved only in rumor, legend, or the faint echoes found in fragmentary inscriptions? The human element cannot be ignored. The scribes, archivists, and royal officials who compiled these records were highly skilled. Yet they too were subject to the vulnerabilities of politics, war, and fate. Their work, essential to the administration and cohesion of the Hittite state, could not withstand the collapse of centralized authority. What was it like to witness the unraveling of an empire, knowing that your careful documentation, the very essence of governance and knowledge, might be lost to fire, pillage, or decay? And yet, in the fragments that survive, we glimpse the meticulous thought, precision, and foresight of these individuals, offering a shadow of the civilization that once was. Even today, Hattusa continues to reveal secrets slowly, layer by layer. Archaeological excavations uncover walls, gateways, temples, and scattered tablets, but the full archive remains elusive. Modern technology, including ground-penetrating radar, remote sensing, and digital reconstruction, offers hope that hidden chambers may yet be found. Could long-buried libraries or caches of tablets lie beneath the city's ruins, shielded from centuries of erosion, looters, and human activity? Or have the archives been lost forever, dispersed across the ancient world, surviving only as fragments in distant collections and museums? Standing among the ruins of Hattusa, one is struck by the scale of human endeavor and the fragility of knowledge. The city's walls rise defiantly against time, yet the very records that gave meaning to those walls, laws, treaties, rituals, and administration, remain largely absent. The disappearance of the archives invites reflection not only on the Hittites, but on the nature of history itself. How civilizations preserve their memory, how knowledge is transmitted or destroyed, and how the gaps left by lost documents shape our understanding of the past. And so, as we contemplate the missing archives of Hattusa, we are left with enduring questions. What knowledge, decisions, and insights have vanished with the collapse of the Hittite capital? Are there hidden caches waiting to be discovered beneath centuries of rubble and sediment? Or has time, wind, and human upheaval erased the bulk of the empire's record forever? The mystery remains, a silent reminder that even the most sophisticated civilizations can leave behind only fragments of their story, and that the past often hides more than it reveals, urging us to wonder what secrets still lie beneath the stones of history. From the fragmented archives of Hattusa, where the traces of one of history's great empires vanish beneath layers of stone and dust, we now turn to a network of materials and trade routes that shaped civilizations, yet remain shrouded in mystery. The Bronze Age glass route. Long before modern transportation or global commerce, a remarkable substance, glass, traveled across deserts, rivers, and mountains, linking distant cultures in ways that historians are still striving to fully understand. From the Levantine coast of Palestine to the civilizations of Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and beyond, fragments of colored glass, beads, and vessels trace the paths of human ingenuity, commerce, and perhaps even ritual. Yet the origins of this trade, the sources of the raw materials, and the methods by which glass traveled and was transformed remain elusive. The term glass route evokes images of caravans threading through deserts, sailors navigating the eastern Mediterranean, and craftsmen shaping molten sand into shimmering vessels. Archaeological discoveries have confirmed that glass production existed by at least 1500 BC, with objects found in Egypt, the Levant, and Mesopotamia displaying advanced techniques of coloring, molding, and finishing. Beads, in particular, were highly prized, often strung in necklaces or deposited in graves, their presence a mark of wealth, status, and cultural connectivity. Yet, as widespread as glass objects were, the sources of the raw materials, silica, soda ash, and various metal oxides for color, pose a continuing puzzle. Where did these early civilizations extract the materials needed to produce such durable and luminous objects? Modern analysis shows that early glassmakers in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Levant employed sand of exceptionally high purity, often combined with natron or plant ash to lower melting points. Certain trace elements, such as manganese or cobalt, indicate regional signatures, suggesting distinct production centers. Yet identifying these sites with certainty remains challenging. Did the earliest glassmakers work in isolated workshops near the coast, in the deserts, or adjacent to urban centers? Were the raw materials transported across great distances, or did multiple independent sources exist? And if they were transported, how did Bronze Age merchants and craftsmen organize such a complex network without maps, carts, or modern logistical tools? Archaeologists have found tantalizing clues. Glass beads discovered in Mycenaean graves of the Aegean, for example, display chemical signatures pointing to origins in the Levant or Egypt. Similarly, decorative glass vessels in Anatolia or Mesopotamia often contain trace elements consistent with coastal or desert sand deposits. This evidence suggests a widespread trade system, linking regions separated by hundreds of kilometers. But the exact routes, intermediaries, and methods remain speculative. How were these goods transported? On camels, donkeys, riverboats, or seagoing vessels? And how did knowledge of glassmaking spread across cultures that sometimes had little direct contact with one another? The mystery deepens when considering the sophistication of Bronze Age glass. Some beads exhibit consistent shapes, colors, and sizes that imply standardized production techniques. Others show experimental combinations of metals and minerals, producing hues and effects that must have required precise understanding of chemistry long before chemical theory existed. Did artisans independently develop these techniques, or were they taught through itinerant craftspeople traveling along trade routes? Was there a central hub where knowledge, materials, and commerce intersected? Or did multiple local centers produce objects in parallel, exchanging only materials or ideas? Speculative theories abound. Some scholars propose that a central, now lost source of high-quality silica may have existed, from which raw materials were distributed along the glass route. Others suggest that the route may have followed ancient river valleys and caravan tracks connecting urban centers such as Ugarit, Byblos, and Mari, as well as emerging cities in the Anatolian highlands. Could there have been an unrecognized administrative or mercantile system overseeing glass production and distribution? A proto-industry that linked political power, craft specialization, and long-distance trade in ways that prefigure later empires? The human dimension is equally compelling. Consider the craftsmen who heated furnaces to hundreds of degrees, carefully controlling temperature, timing, and composition to produce translucent beads and vessels. They worked without written formulas, relying instead on observation, experience, and perhaps oral instruction passed across generations. How many techniques were lost with the fall of cities, the collapse of trade networks, or the displacement of artisans by war and migration? And what cultural and ritual significance did these objects carry? Were they simply ornaments, markers of status, or imbued with symbolic or religious meaning tied to color, shape, or material? The fragility of both material and knowledge compounds the mystery. Glass is durable when intact but easily shattered. Unrecorded techniques can vanish in a single generation. Many Bronze Age sites have been destroyed by warfare, flooding, or urban expansion. The surviving beads and vessels are scattered, often removed from their original context, making it difficult to reconstruct the full extent of the trade system. Could caches of raw materials, workshops, or archives documenting transactions still lie buried beneath ancient ruins, waiting to be rediscovered? Or has the sands of time buried these secrets permanently? Modern technological analysis, including isotope studies and chemical profiling, has begun to shed light on some questions. By identifying the composition of glass fragments, researchers can trace likely sources of sand and coloring agents. Some studies suggest surprising long-distance connections. For example, Egyptian-style glass appearing in Mycenaean contexts, implying early maritime trade and cultural exchange across the eastern Mediterranean. Yet, the puzzle remains incomplete. How did knowledge of production techniques, distribution, and use spread alongside the objects themselves? Did the glass root represent a network of highly localized centers, or a more organized empire-scale system that has vanished with the ruins of Bronze Age cities? Standing today among the remains of Bronze Age ports, workshops, and ancient caravan routes, one is struck by the combination of ingenuity and mystery. Each bead, vessel, or shard speaks not only of skill but of networks that spanned deserts and seas, linking distant lands through commerce, culture, and craft. Yet for every piece recovered, countless others have vanished, their origins, journeys, and makers forever unknown. The glass root challenges us to consider the sophistication of societies that left no written manuals for production, no shipping manifests, no maps of their trade, yet shaped an interconnected world through materials alone. And so, as we contemplate the source and spread of Bronze Age glass, we are left with enduring questions. Where were the true origins of the materials, and who controlled their flow? Were there workshops or mercantile hubs whose existence we have yet to discover? And most intriguingly, what other knowledge, technological, economic, and cultural, traveled along this route, only to vanish along with the goods themselves? The mystery endures, a reminder that even in periods long before modern civilization, humans created networks, mastered materials, and left traces that hint at a complexity far beyond what survives in the archaeological record. The Bronze Age glass route is more than a network of trade. It is a testament to human curiosity, innovation, and ambition, as well as the fragility of knowledge in the face of time. Every bead and vessel recovered invites us to imagine the artisans, merchants, and travelers who created and moved them, and every gap in the record challenges us to consider what remains hidden beneath the sands, ruins, and deserts of history. From the scattered shards and lost networks of the Bronze Age glass route, which connect civilizations across deserts and seas, our journey turns to a single, silent figure, one who has endured for millennia, yet whose identity remains a profound mystery. Deep within the necropolis of Saqqara, the ancient burial ground of Egypt's pharaohs and elites, lies a mummy known only as the Unknown Man-E. Unlike the carefully labeled tombs of kings, priests, or notable officials, this individual's resting place offers no clear record of name, title, or lineage. Yet the preserved body, studied in modern times through the lens of forensic science and radiological imaging, raises more questions than answers, whispering enigmas across the centuries about life, death, and the limits of historical knowledge. Saqqara itself is a landscape of silence and shadow. Stretching across the desert plain south of Memphis, it hosts pyramids, mastabas, and tomb complexes that testify to thousands of years of Egyptian civilization. Among these monuments, the step pyramid of Djoser Towers, a stone sentinel to an early era of architectural ambition. In the surrounding sands and subterranean corridors lie hundreds of mummies, yet none is quite like Unknown Man-E. The remains were discovered in the late 19th century, part of a collection of burials that had been disturbed and shuffled over centuries, their original context lost to tomb robbers, shifting sands, and the slow decay of time. From the first glance, the body appears ordinary. A man of average stature, wrapped in linen, embalmed with care. But a closer look reveals anomalies that have puzzled scientists and historians alike. In the 1990s, modern researchers subjected the mummy to detailed study using X-rays and CT scans, seeking insight into age, stature, cause of death, and the embalming techniques employed. What emerged was extraordinary. Unlike the meticulous mummification procedures documented in other burials, Unknown Man-E's body displayed signs of unusual treatment. The limbs were positioned at precise angles, internal organs removed in a manner inconsistent with known Egyptian methods, and some features suggested deliberate modification rather than mere preservation. What was the purpose of this treatment? Was it an experiment in mortuary technique, a ritualistic adaptation, or something more enigmatic entirely? Equally baffling is the cause of death. Initial studies suggested that this man suffered a violent demise, fractures, blunt force trauma, and other injuries inconsistent with natural causes. Yet the exact circumstances remain unclear. Was this the result of an accident, interpersonal violence, or a ceremonial execution? Ancient texts provide little guidance. There is no inscription or funerary text to explain the unusual treatment or violent injuries. Unlike the tombs of nobility, which often include extensive hieroglyphic inscriptions detailing names, titles, and accomplishments, the mummy of unknown man E offers only his body as testimony, leaving observers to reconstruct the story from its silent evidence. Mainstream hypotheses suggest that unknown man E may have been a victim of punishment, possibly a criminal, foreigner, or political rival whose death required both secrecy and a form of ritualized disposal. Others propose that he could have been an experimental subject, someone sacrificed in the name of medical or embalming research, or even a messenger of religious or mystical significance. Each scenario attempts to reconcile the physical evidence with the cultural and historical context of late-period Egypt, yet none can be confirmed. What stands out is the deliberate nature of the anomalies. Nothing about the body appears accidental, suggesting intent behind the preservation and positioning that is lost to our understanding. Speculative theories extend even further. Some researchers have considered whether unknown man E represents a heretical or banned individual, a person whose status demanded secrecy even in death. Could he have been associated with foreign powers, perhaps from the Near East, or involved in clandestine political intrigue that left him unrecorded in the annals of Egyptian history? The presence of fractures and unusual mummification methods has led some fringe theorists to posit interactions with unknown or forbidden rituals, potentially tied to esoteric knowledge or lost religious practices. While these ideas remain speculative, they underscore the enduring fascination with a body that challenges conventional narratives of death and commemoration. The location of the mummy within Saqqara further complicates interpretation. Found in a shared or secondary burial area, the individual was clearly interred with some care, yet not accorded the monumental honor given to pharaohs or high-ranking officials. What determined his placement? Was it proximity to sacred sites, the result of a hurried interment, or evidence of a burial network designed for individuals outside the formal hierarchy? Even the linen wrappings, embalming resins, and positioning suggest a level of knowledge and technical skill, yet one applied in a manner inconsistent with normative funerary practice. Each detail is both revealing and opaque, a paradox of meticulous care and unexplained deviation. The human dimension of this mystery invites reflection. Unknown man. E was a living individual, someone who experienced the political, social, and cultural realities of his time. He may have walked the streets of Memphis, witnessed the rituals of temples, or traveled across the Nile Valley. Yet all we can observe now is his silent, preserved form, bearing the marks of death, trauma, and intentional modification. What thoughts, fears, or intentions did he hold in life, and what fate led him to a burial that left no record beyond his physical remains? The questions linger, bridging human empathy and historical investigation. Modern technology continues to illuminate, but not fully resolve, the enigma. CT scans reveal minute fractures, calcifications, and patterns in tissue preservation that hint at extraordinary embalming knowledge. Isotope analysis can suggest dietary habits and geographic origins, yet even these advanced techniques cannot answer the most pressing questions. Why was he treated differently from contemporaries? Who decided the methods applied and for what purpose? And perhaps most hauntingly, what else might have been recorded about this individual that has vanished from history alongside him? The mystery of unknown man E is emblematic of the limits of historical knowledge. Unlike written records, which can be deciphered, or artifacts, which can be contextualized, a single human body conveys information through its physicality alone. Yet bodies can mislead, be altered, or reflect practices lost to time. In this case, the mummy is a nexus of history, archaeology, forensic science, and speculation, a tangible link to a vanished world that offers both clues and frustration in equal measure. Standing before a modern reconstruction of Saqqara's burial corridors, imagining the care taken to wrap, position, and preserve this individual, it is impossible not to feel the weight of the unknown. Here lies a man who has witnessed millennia pass over him, whose presence challenges assumptions about Egyptian mortuary practice, and whose story, if it ever existed in full, has been lost. We are left to contemplate both the individual and the society that produced him, the methods and intentions behind his mummification, and the broader context of an empire that could both celebrate grandeur and hide its secrets. And so, as we reflect on the mysterious, unknown man E, questions abound. Who was he, and why was his body treated differently from others of his time? Was he a criminal, an outsider, a ritual participant, or an experiment of some kind? What knowledge, cultural practice, or historical record has vanished with him? The mummy remains silent, a preserved enigma, inviting us to wonder what lies hidden in Saqqara's sands, what stories, rituals, and individuals remain lost to time, waiting to be rediscovered, or perhaps destined to remain forever unknown. From the silent corridors of Saqqara, where the preserved figure of the unknown man E guards secrets lost to time, we journey across the Mediterranean to the sun-baked island of Crete, where another enigma lies, one etched not in flesh but in clay. Nestled within the ruins of the Minoan palace of Phaistos, discovered in the early 20th century, archaeologists uncovered a disk unlike any other. A small circular tablet bearing 241 symbols pressed into its surface in a spiral pattern. This artifact, now known as the Phaistos disk, captivates scholars and enthusiasts alike, not only for its beauty and precision, but for the tantalizing mystery that has persisted for over a century. What message, if any, does it convey? The disk itself is a remarkable object, approximately 15 centimeters in diameter, composed of fired clay. Its surface is stamped with a series of pictographs, human figures, animals, plants, tools, and abstract symbols, arranged in a continuous spiral from edge to center. Unlike most ancient inscriptions, which were hand-carved or painted, the Phaistos disk was produced using individual stamps, suggesting a method of mass production previously unrecognized in Bronze Age Europe. Each impression is sharply defined, and the regularity of the symbols indicates careful design and purpose. The sheer ingenuity of the artifact suggests that it was intended for communication or ritual, yet its meaning has eluded even the most experienced linguists and archaeologists. The discovery of the disk in 1908 by Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier was both thrilling and perplexing. Buried within the ruins of the palace complex, in a layer dating roughly to 1700 BC, it was found alongside domestic artifacts and ceremonial items, yet it seemed entirely unique. No similar object has ever been found, either on Crete or elsewhere, making the disk a singular window into an ancient culture whose script and language remain largely undeciphered. Scholars have pored over photographs, rubbings, and later digital reconstructions, attempting to link the symbols to known writing systems of the Minoan civilization, such as Linear A, yet no consensus has emerged. Was the disk a religious hymn, a royal decree, a calendar, or even a game? The possibilities are as numerous as they are tantalizing. Mainstream scholarship has focused on several hypotheses. Some suggest that the disk represents an early form of writing, perhaps phonetic or syllabic, intended to record ritual or administrative information. Others argue that it could be a mnemonic device, a tool for reciting stories or prayers rather than a literal script. The spiral pattern, uncommon in contemporary inscriptions, hints at symbolic or ceremonial significance, perhaps related to cyclical time, fertility, or cosmology, ideas central to Minoan culture. Yet even these grounded theories confront a profound limitation: the absence of corroborating texts. Without additional examples of similar inscriptions or an accompanying translation, every interpretation is provisional, a careful conjecture rather than certainty. The Phaistos disk also raises questions about technology and craftsmanship. Each symbol was impressed with a separate stamp, suggesting that the makers had devised a sophisticated method for standardizing inscriptions. How widespread was this technique? Was the disk an experimental prototype, the sole survivor of a larger corpus, or part of a specialized tradition whose other artifacts have been lost to fire, collapse, or decay? The precision of the impressions, combined with the spiral arrangement, implies a highly intentional design, yet the intent itself remains obscured. What motivated the creators to invest such effort in an object whose function, and even audience, remains mysterious? Speculative theories abound. Some researchers propose that the disk may represent a form of proto-writing, a transitional stage between pictographs and fully phonetic scripts. Others suggest it could encode a ritual chant, a calendar, or a record of astronomical observations reflecting the Minoans' interest in cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. More fringe ideas have ventured into linguistic enigmas, proposing connections to distant or undeciphered scripts, including Linear A, Etruscan, or even early Anatolian languages. Could the Phaistos disk be a remnant of a lost writing tradition? One deliberately restricted to priestly or elite classes, whose secrets were never recorded elsewhere? Or is it an isolated creation, a ceremonial artifact whose meaning was understood intuitively in its own time but has vanished with the collapse of Minoan civilization? The human dimension of the disk adds depth to the mystery. Imagine the artisan carefully pressing each stamp into the soft clay, aware that the symbols were meaningful, deliberate, and possibly sacred. Who was this individual, and for whom was the disk made? Was it intended for a single ruler, a priest, or the community at large? And what thoughts, beliefs, and intentions guided the selection of each symbol and the arrangement of the spiral? Every impression embodies a human choice, yet every choice is obscured by the loss of context and the silence of history. Attempts to decode the disk have produced many proposed translations, but none universally accepted. Linguists have approached it as an early syllabary, a logographic system, or even a cipher, while computational analyses have searched for repeating patterns, statistical regularities, and possible syntactic structures. Some studies suggest a linguistic message, while others highlight ritualistic or symbolic repetition, reinforcing the notion that the disk may have functioned as more than mere communication. The lack of parallel texts, or a Rosetta Stone equivalent, leaves each hypothesis tantalizing but inconclusive, sustaining a century-long debate among scholars. The mystery of the Phaistos disk also resonates with broader questions about the transmission of knowledge. How many other artifacts of similar sophistication have been lost, destroyed, or remain undiscovered beneath layers of earth and rubble? What can the disk tell us about the society that produced it, about Minoan literacy, ritual practice, and technological capability? Even as we apply modern analytical techniques, high-resolution imaging, chemical composition studies, and computational modeling, we confront the limits of interpretation when the historical record itself is fragmentary. Standing on the remains of the Phaistos Palace today, one can imagine the interplay of human ingenuity, ritual significance, and cultural memory that produced this extraordinary object. The island, with its rugged hills and Mediterranean light, has preserved not only architecture and pottery, but also this single enigmatic disk, a testament to a civilization whose voice is partly audible and partly silent. The Phaistos disk, in its perfect spiral and carefully stamped symbols, is both a window into Minoan life and a reminder of how much remains inaccessible, hidden beneath centuries of history, geography, and the inevitable erosion of time. And so, as we contemplate the Phaistos disk, questions endure. What message was encoded upon it, and why was it created in a form found nowhere else? Was it a practical record, a sacred artifact, or a symbolic object whose meaning was understood intuitively by its makers? How many other messages, written or symbolic, have been lost to fire, collapse, or human neglect, leaving only tantalizing fragments? The disk invites us to wonder not only about its own purpose, but about the broader patterns of knowledge, craft, and communication that ancient civilizations developed, and the mysteries that remain just beyond our grasp, waiting to be rediscovered or perhaps destined to remain unknowable. From the spiraling symbols pressed into clay on Crete, whose meaning has eluded us for centuries, our journey now takes us across oceans and continents to the dense jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula, where the echoes of another ancient civilization lie buried beneath stone and earth. Here stands the majestic temple of Kukulcán at Chichen Itza, a monumental pyramid built by the Maya over a millennium ago. Its steps rise with precise mathematical symmetry, casting shadows that mark solstices, while its exterior carvings depict deities, serpents, and rituals central to Mesoamerican belief. Yet beneath the visible layers of this monumental structure, hidden from view, lie sealed chambers whose purpose, contents, and origins remain largely unknown, hinting at mysteries that time has preserved but never fully revealed. Archaeologists first suspected the presence of these hidden spaces through subtle anomalies in the pyramid's construction, slight variations in density detected in ground-penetrating radar scans, unusual acoustic properties within certain levels, and voids that defied explanation. Subsequent investigations revealed a network of tunnels, chambers, and passageways beneath the pyramid, some aligned with celestial markers, others seemingly constructed with careful intent to remain inaccessible. Unlike tombs designed to display the wealth and power of rulers, these chambers appear deliberately concealed, a hidden underworld beneath one of the most iconic monuments of the Maya. What purpose could such spaces serve? Were they repositories of ritual, archives of knowledge, tombs of the elite, or perhaps spaces whose function was known only to a select few? Mainstream interpretations suggest that these chambers may have served ceremonial or ritualistic purposes. The Maya often built symbolic structures representing cosmological concepts, linking the underworld, earthly realm, and heavens. Could the sealed chambers represent a microcosm of this cosmology, a hidden world echoing the sacred architecture above? Alternatively, some have proposed that they were used for elite burials, repositories for sacred objects, or storage for precious offerings intended to accompany the city and its rulers in the afterlife. The precise engineering of the pyramid, with its alignment to the equinox and solstices, supports the idea that hidden spaces were integral to ceremonial function, rather than accidental byproducts of construction. Yet the mystery deepens when considering anomalies within the chambers themselves. Acoustic studies suggest that certain chambers amplify sound in unusual ways, producing resonances that could have been harnessed for ritual chants, music, or other forms of ceremonial expression. Small artifacts discovered in restricted areas, ceramic fragments, obsidian tools, and ritual objects offer tantalizing glimpses of human activity, but these findings are sparse, leaving more questions than answers. Why were some chambers sealed entirely while others were left partially accessible? Could there have been a coded system for granting entry, known only to priests or rulers, ensuring that knowledge or ritual practices were restricted to an inner circle? Speculative theories have explored even more enigmatic possibilities. Some researchers suggest that the chambers may have served as astronomical observatories or timekeeping devices, reflecting the Maya's sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles. Others hypothesize that the sealed spaces could house sacred texts, codices, or relics that never survived the passage of time, preserved in the darkness for spiritual or political reasons. Fringe theories even propose connections to unknown technologies or lost knowledge, hidden deliberately to protect secrets that were considered dangerous or powerful. While these ideas remain speculative, they underscore the profound sense of intentionality behind the construction of the hidden spaces beneath the pyramid. The human element is equally compelling. Imagine the builders who labored under the tropical sun, transporting massive stones, carving intricate reliefs, and creating a structure that aligns precisely with solar and lunar events. Within their ranks were individuals who dug tunnels, reinforced chambers, and crafted concealed spaces with care and secrecy. Who determined what should remain hidden and why? Were these spaces intended to endure as secret repositories for generations, or were they temporary sites for ceremonies whose meaning has been lost? Every stone and every sealed doorway is a testament to both ingenuity and enigma, to a civilization whose knowledge exceeded what was revealed to the masses. Sealing a chamber is, in itself, an act of intention. The Maya could have left these spaces open, yet they chose concealment. What motivated this secrecy? Was it fear of desecration? A desire to protect sacred rituals? Or perhaps a belief in an unseen world accessible only to initiates? Could the chambers be symbolic, representing hidden knowledge or spiritual truths that exist beyond human comprehension? Even today, the very act of discovery is delicate. Archaeologists must balance curiosity with preservation, aware that invasive exploration may destroy as much as it reveals. Modern technology has begun to peel back the veil, revealing voids and structural anomalies through scanning and imaging, yet the contents of many chambers remain untouched. Robotic probes, acoustic analysis, and 3D reconstructions offer glimpses of hidden passageways and architectural complexity, but much is still obscured. The pyramid, built over centuries, embodies layers of ritual, engineering, and culture, with its hidden chambers as reminders that the most important secrets may lie beneath what is immediately visible. What stories, rituals, or knowledge have been preserved in darkness, waiting for the right moment, or the right discovery, to emerge? Standing before the temple of Kukulcán, it is impossible not to feel the weight of centuries pressing from the sealed chambers below. The pyramid is a monument of vision, mathematics, and spiritual belief. Yet beneath its carefully constructed steps lies an underworld of unknown significance. Every stone, every concealed corridor, and every void invites contemplation of the Maya's understanding of cosmos and ritual, of the care and intention required to maintain secrecy, and of the gaps that remain in our comprehension of a civilization that achieved extraordinary feats of architecture and observation. And so, as we reflect on the sealed chambers beneath the temple of Kukulcán, questions endure. What lies within these hidden spaces, and why were they sealed so deliberately? Were they repositories of sacred knowledge, tombs, ceremonial stages, or something entirely beyond our understanding? How much of Maya ritual, astronomy, or political structure is encoded not in inscriptions or monuments, but in the deliberate concealment of spaces whose purpose was never meant to be fully revealed? The mystery remains, silent yet persistent, urging us to imagine the hidden world beneath the pyramid and to wonder what truths the jungle and stone have kept secret for over 1,000 years. From the hidden chambers beneath the temple of Kukulcán, where the Maya preserved mysteries beneath stone and shadow, we now traverse continents and millennia to the shifting sands of the Arabian desert. Here, amidst endless dunes and arid plains, lie traces of a city so legendary that its very existence was long questioned, the ancient city of Ubar. Often called the Atlantis of the Sands, Ubar appears in classical texts and Arabian folklore as a hub of wealth, culture, and trade. A city famed for frankincense, incense, and caravans that traversed the harsh desert landscape. Yet despite its renown, the city itself vanished beneath the desert long before modern archaeology could confirm its presence, leaving only tantalizing hints of a civilization swallowed by the earth and time. The desert around Oman, Yemen, and southern Arabia is unforgiving. Endless dunes stretch to the horizon, shimmering under the sun, concealing what may have been once fertile valleys, trade routes, and thriving settlements. Satellite imagery, combined with ground surveys, has revealed remnants of walls, cisterns, and collapsed structures, suggesting the existence of complex habitation. Yet the outlines are faint, fragmentary, and often buried beneath hundreds of meters of sand. Travelers from antiquity, including Pliny the Elder and later Islamic scholars, described a city of great wealth whose decline was swift and dramatic. Was Ubar destroyed by natural disaster, economic collapse, or human conflict? Or did it fade gradually, abandoned as trade networks shifted and desertification claimed the land? Archaeological studies, including work by explorer and archaeologist Juris Zarins, have identified potential locations of Ubar near the Dhofar region, tracing caravan routes and ancient wells that would have sustained commerce. These routes were lifelines for the transport of frankincense and myrrh, substances prized across the ancient world for ritual, medicine, and luxury. The city's prosperity depended on both its position at the crossroads of trade and the fragile ecology of the desert. Satellite imagery has even revealed collapsed limestone structures, suggesting subterranean caverns or sinkholes beneath the city, features that may have contributed to its sudden disappearance. Could the very earth have swallowed Ubar, leaving only whispers of its existence in desert sands? The mystery is compounded by the scarcity of written records. While regional texts allude to a prosperous center of commerce, no contemporary accounts provide clear details of its rulers, population, or culture. Was Ubar governed by a centralized authority, or was it a loosely organized network of trading posts and caravan hubs? How did its society function amid the harsh desert climate, and what role did religion, ritual, and social hierarchy play in everyday life? Some scholars suggest that the city's wealth may have been concentrated among a few merchant elites, whose control over the frankincense trade dictated the prosperity of the wider region. Yet without detailed records, we are left to reconstruct society from the archaeological record and the traces left in oral tradition. The causes of Ubar's collapse remain equally enigmatic. Mainstream theories emphasize environmental and economic factors. The shifting sands of the desert may have blocked access to wells, disrupted trade routes, or rendered farmland infertile. Desertification, a gradual transformation of arable land into barren dunes, would have placed extreme stress on urban infrastructure. Yet archaeological evidence also hints at sudden catastrophes. Some ruins suggest structures that collapsed abruptly, perhaps due to sinkholes, subsidence, or other geological events. Could natural disaster have accelerated a decline that was already underway? Or did human error, overexploitation of resources, or conflict play a decisive role? Speculative theories deepen the intrigue. Certain interpretations of Arabian folklore describe Ubar as a city punished by divine forces, swallowed by the sands in response to hubris or moral transgression. While this is mythological in tone, it may reflect cultural memory of an actual environmental or societal collapse. Could these legends encode real events, transmitted orally over centuries, transforming natural and social disasters into narrative warnings? Others suggest that Ubar's disappearance may have been aided by the mobility of trade. As caravan routes shifted, cities lost relevance almost overnight, abandoned not by catastrophe, but by commerce. The desert, vast and unforgiving, would then erase the traces of human occupation, leaving only the faintest marks detectable by modern technology. Human ingenuity in Ubar is evident in the archaeological remnants. The city's inhabitants engineered wells, cisterns, and irrigation to survive in the arid environment. Stone foundations suggest multi-story structures, and the alignment of roads and caravan tracks demonstrates careful planning to facilitate commerce and protect travelers from the harsh desert climate. Yet even these remarkable feats could not prevent eventual decline. The very same desert that allowed trade to flourish also ensured that structures, no matter how solid, could be swallowed by sand or sink into the shifting substrate, erasing entire urban landscapes in a matter of decades or centuries. The story of Ubar also underscores the fragility of human memory. For centuries, scholars debated its existence, relying on sparse references in texts, legends, and inscriptions. Only with modern satellite imagery, combined with careful excavation and geophysical analysis, have archaeologists been able to piece together a tentative picture of the city's scale, layout, and connections. Yet despite these advances, Ubar's full story, its population, social structures, daily life, and ultimate fate, remains incomplete. Every ruin uncovered raises new questions. What was lost before it could be recorded, and what other cities, equally significant, may lie hidden beneath deserts elsewhere in the world? The human element of Ubar's story is compelling as well. Imagine the merchants, laborers, and officials who navigated harsh desert conditions to maintain trade networks. The caravans laden with frankincense, myrrh, and precious goods. The families who lived and worked in stone houses that now lie buried beneath shifting sands. They experienced both prosperity and vulnerability, their fates intertwined with the environment, the economy, and perhaps forces beyond their control. Did they anticipate the city's decline, or did it arrive without warning, leaving only legend in its wake? The mystery of Ubar is as much about the people as it is about the structures and commerce that defined their world. Modern exploration continues to reveal tantalizing fragments. Satellite data has mapped ancient caravan routes and potential city outlines, while ground excavation uncovers artifacts, ceramics, tools, and architectural elements that hint at life in this once thriving hub. Yet, the desert conceals as much as it reveals. Shifting sands, erosion, and the passage of millennia obscure details and challenge interpretation. Every discovery opens new avenues of inquiry. What role did environmental pressures play? How centralized was urban planning? And could Ubar have survived if trade networks had shifted differently? Standing on the dunes today, with wind stirring sand over ancient ruins, it is possible to imagine both the grandeur and vulnerability of Ubar. A city of commerce, innovation, and culture built amidst the unforgiving desert, it thrived and then vanished, leaving traces only detectable through modern technology and painstaking excavation. The collapse of Ubar is a story of human ambition meeting the relentless forces of nature and the fragile networks that sustain civilization. It reminds us that even the most prosperous centers can disappear almost entirely, leaving echoes that challenge our understanding of the past. And so, as we reflect on Ubar's vanished streets and buried chambers, questions endure. What truly caused the city to collapse? And could it have been prevented? How much of its culture, economy, and daily life is lost forever beneath sand and stone? Are there other cities, forgotten to legend, waiting to be revealed in the deserts of Arabia or elsewhere? Ubar stands as a testament to the impermanence of human achievement and the mysteries that remain hidden in the vast, shifting landscapes of our world, reminding us that history is as much about what has disappeared as what has endured. From the vanished city of Ubar, buried beneath the shifting sands of the Arabian desert, we turn northward to the arid expanses of the Levant, where another enigma stretches across the horizon, this time etched into the landscape itself. From aerial surveys and satellite imagery, vast geometric structures emerge, their precise lines cutting across deserts and rocky plateaus. Known as the desert kites, these monumental stone formations date back as far as 3000 BC, yet their purpose remains a profound mystery, challenging archaeologists and historians to interpret their function and significance. Spanning hundreds of meters, sometimes kilometers, the kites form a network of converging walls, enclosures, and funnel-like extensions, creating a visual language that is unmistakably intentional but utterly enigmatic. The desert kites are remarkable in scale. Viewed from the ground, they appear as low, unassuming walls built from loose stones, extending outward in linear arms that converge toward a central enclosure or pit. From above, however, their true form is revealed. Sweeping geometric shapes, sometimes resembling bird silhouettes or abstract patterns, meticulously aligned with the contours of the terrain. Such precision implies considerable planning and collective effort, hinting at sophisticated knowledge of topography, construction, and social organization. The walls themselves are often only a meter or two high, yet the patterning is unmistakable across the desert landscape, suggesting a purpose that transcends simple survival. Mainstream interpretations have long suggested that the desert kites functioned as hunting traps. According to this view, ancient communities would drive herds of wild animals, gazelles, ibex, or other prey, into the converging walls and funnel them toward enclosures or pits where they could be more easily captured or slaughtered. This explanation is supported by some archaeological evidence. Bones and remains found near certain kite enclosures indicate large-scale hunting activities, while ethnographic parallels hint at similar communal hunting strategies used elsewhere in antiquity. The method would have required coordination, collective labor, and deep knowledge of animal behavior, indicating that the kites were far more than simple stone alignments. They were tools of survival, engineering, and social organization. Yet the desert kites raise questions that defy straightforward explanation. Many kites are positioned in areas that would seem inaccessible or impractical for herding animals. Others lack nearby evidence of settlement, prompting the question, who built them, and for what immediate purpose? Could some kites have been symbolic, ritualistic, or territorial markers, rather than functional hunting tools? The sheer scale of some networks, extending across valleys and ridges, suggests labor and resources invested beyond mere subsistence. Were they a display of communal power, a means of organizing the landscape, or perhaps a complex combination of practicality and symbolism? Speculative theories deepen the intrigue. Some researchers suggest that the kites may have served dual purposes, hunting and ritual. The funneling patterns could have guided herds toward areas of ceremonial significance, where the capture and offering of animals was intertwined with religious practice. Others posit that the shapes themselves, visible from high ground or potentially even from elevated platforms, conveyed symbolic messages, asserting social cohesion, territorial claims, or cosmological ideas. Could these lines in stone represent an early form of landscape expression, where geometry and environment converge to communicate human presence, ritual, and control over nature? The desert kites also raise technological questions. How did Bronze Age societies coordinate the construction of structures spanning kilometers? How were stones transported, aligned, and maintained over time, especially in harsh, shifting desert conditions? The precision with which certain kites follow terrain contours, descend valleys, or align with natural features suggests not only careful observation, but also an intentional understanding of geography and engineering. The builders, while lacking written records or formal surveying tools, achieved a spatial sophistication that continues to astonish modern researchers. What knowledge of landscape, animal behavior, and social organization was required to orchestrate such monumental projects, and how was it transmitted across generations? Environmental factors may also have played a role in the use and eventual abandonment of the kites. Climate changes, shifting animal populations, and evolving human settlement patterns could have rendered some structures obsolete. Desertification or alterations in water availability may have influenced where herds congregated, and thus where hunting enclosures were effective. Yet the desert itself, preserving these structures for millennia, also conceals their full context. Without extensive excavation and analysis, many of the kite's purposes remain speculative. Could entire networks have served functions we have yet to even consider, ceremonial, symbolic, or perhaps even experimental? The human dimension adds further layers of fascination. Imagine ancient communities gathering to construct these monumental alignments. Men, women, and children moving stones, clearing paths, and coordinating efforts across vast desert expanses. The kites would have required collective planning, communication, and shared knowledge of topography and ecology. Each structure is a testament to collaboration, ingenuity, and cultural continuity, suggesting that the builders were not only concerned with immediate survival, but with shaping their environment in ways that transcended daily necessity. Yet, as with many ancient constructions, the voices of these people are lost to time. We can see their handiwork in stone, but we cannot hear their stories, understand their beliefs, or grasp the full scope of their intentions. Modern technology has begun to illuminate the scale and complexity of the desert kites. High-resolution satellite imagery and drones allow researchers to map networks across hundreds of square kilometers, revealing patterns invisible from ground level. Geophysical surveys detect subtle depressions, pits, and alignments, while radiocarbon dating provides approximate timelines, situating construction between 3000 and 1000 BC. Even with these tools, interpretation remains challenging. The lack of written records leaves archaeologists dependent on inference and analogy, balancing caution with the human desire to understand. Every discovery, while illuminating, opens further questions about function, chronology, and cultural significance. The desert kites also invite reflection on the fragility and resilience of human endeavor. Constructed to withstand centuries of sun, wind, and occasional flood, many kites endure in recognizable form, while their purpose remains opaque. The desert preserves the geometry of human intent, yet obscures the narrative behind it. Like Ubar or the Phaistos disk, these stone alignments remind us that much of human history is encoded in objects and landscapes rather than texts, and that understanding requires patience, perspective, and imagination. What stories of society, economy, and ritual are etched into the earth yet remain hidden from view? Standing upon a ridge overlooking the desert kites, one can see how human ambition inscribed itself upon the landscape. The converging lines, enclosures, and sweeping patterns hint at practical function, ritual significance, and social cohesion, yet their full meaning eludes us. They are monuments not just to survival, but to the capacity of humans to shape the world in enduring ways, even when the precise reason remains lost to time. What remains hidden beneath the stones, or in the subtle choices of alignment and scale, may hold insights into the daily lives, beliefs, and ingenuity of Bronze Age societies that once traversed these deserts. And so, as we consider the desert kites of the Levant, questions linger. Were they primarily hunting tools, ceremonial landscapes, territorial markers, or a combination of all three? Who designed and built them, And how did knowledge of their construction and purpose circulate within communities? How many networks, lost to sand or unrecorded, have been swallowed by time, leaving only fragmentary evidence of human enterprise? The desert kites, like Ubar and the pyramids of Mesoamerica, are enduring reminders that the past is never fully accessible, that human intention and mystery coexist in stone and earth, and that the landscape itself can be both canvas and archive, preserving enigmas for those willing to look closely and imagine. From the expansive deserts of the Levant, marked by the enigmatic lines of the desert kites, we now turn to a different marvel of human ingenuity, the colossal stones of Baalbek, rising from the fertile Bekaa Valley of modern Lebanon. Here, amidst rolling plains and the distant silhouette of mountains, lies one of the most astonishing architectural achievements of the ancient world, the temple complex of Heliopolis, dominated by the immense platform upon which its temples stand. Yet the most confounding aspect of this site is not the temples themselves, but the foundation stones, some weighing hundreds of tons, known as the Baalbek Trilithon. 3 of these stones, hewn from massive limestone blocks, measure approximately 19 meters in length, over 3 meters in height, and tip the scales at an estimated 800 to 1,000 tons each. How they were quarried, transported, and positioned with such precision remains one of history's most enduring engineering mysteries. Standing before the trilithon, one is immediately struck by the immensity of the stones. Each monolith dwarfs the human figure, casting deep shadows across the ground, while their sheer weight and precision of placement provoke awe and disbelief. The stones sit in perfect alignment, forming the foundation of a platform that predates much of the visible Roman architecture above it. Even today, attempts to imagine moving a single block of this size challenge engineers and architects. In antiquity, without cranes, modern machinery, or mechanized transport, the task seems almost inconceivable. Yet the builders of Baalbek not only moved these stones, they lifted, aligned, and integrated them into a structure that has endured millennia, surviving earthquakes, erosion, and human activity. Mainstream archaeological interpretations suggest that the stones were quarried from nearby sites, perhaps less than a kilometer away, yet the challenge of moving weights approaching 1,000 tons across uneven terrain remains enormous. Scholars have proposed methods ranging from rolling the stones on logs, dragging them over lubricated pathways, to constructing massive earthen ramps. Each hypothesis requires a level of organization, manpower, and ingenuity that surpasses ordinary construction projects of the period. Estimates of labor suggest hundreds, if not thousands, of workers, carefully coordinated over months or years, possibly employing sophisticated engineering knowledge passed down through generations. Yet the more one examines the trilithon, the deeper the mystery becomes. The precision with which the stones are cut, fitted, and aligned is extraordinary. The faces of the blocks are smooth, straight, and often perfectly joined, allowing for near-invisible seams despite their immense weight. How did ancient workers achieve such precision without the tools and measuring instruments we take for granted today? Some suggest advanced levers, pulleys, and wooden scaffolding, while others point to techniques long lost to history, methods hinted at in oral traditions or fragmentary inscriptions. Could the builders have possessed specialized knowledge of mechanical principles and geometry that has not survived in written form? Speculative theories abound, reflecting the human fascination with the scale of the achievement. Some suggest that the stone's arrangement and the alignment of the platform correspond to astronomical events, connecting the temple complex to solar or lunar cycles. Others speculate that the sheer immensity of the stones served a symbolic purpose, a display of divine power, political authority, or communal ambition designed to impress both mortals and deities. A more fringe line of thought even proposes that now-lost technologies or techniques, perhaps inherited from earlier civilizations, allowed the ancient builders to manipulate these monoliths with ease, methods that have been forgotten over time, leaving only the evidence of their results. The Baalbek Trilithon also raises questions about human ambition and resilience. Quarrying a block of limestone weighing hundreds of tons is an extraordinary feat of labor, planning, and precision. Moving such a monolith requires coordination on a scale that implies centralized authority, logistical mastery, and intimate knowledge of both material and terrain. Every phase of the operation, from cutting the stone to dragging it, lifting it, and positioning it on the platform, demands foresight and ingenuity. How did the planners calculate angles, friction, and force required? How did they ensure the safety of workers, the structural integrity of the stones, and the alignment of the platform itself? These questions underscore the sophistication of ancient societies, revealing capabilities that rival modern engineering in terms of vision, if not technology. Environmental factors may have played a role in the execution of this monumental task. The Bekaa Valley, though fertile, presents challenges. Uneven terrain, seasonal rains, and the proximity of the anti-Lebanon mountains would have complicated transport. Perhaps natural features were leveraged: the slope of a hill, the consistency of riverbeds, or the stability of limestone outcrops to assist in moving these stones. Did the builders understand how to harness the environment to their advantage, or did they rely purely on human labor and ingenuity? The answers remain speculative, leaving us to imagine the rhythms of construction, the coordinated efforts of teams working in harmony with the land, and the extraordinary patience required to accomplish such feats. The historical context adds further intrigue. Baalbek was later incorporated into Roman culture, receiving monumental temples dedicated to Jupiter, Bacchus, and Venus. Yet, the Trilithon predates Roman construction, suggesting that earlier civilizations, perhaps Phoenician or pre-Phoenician, initiated the project. Who these builders were, and how they acquired the knowledge and resources to manipulate such massive stones, remains uncertain. Was there continuity of knowledge across generations, or did each civilization independently master techniques of construction at this scale? And why build on such an epic scale at all? Was it religious devotion, political ambition, or a combination of both? Modern exploration and analysis have revealed clues but no definitive answers. Laser scanning, 3D modeling, and geophysical surveys show the immense precision of the stones and the underlying quarry patterns, but fail to fully account for transport and placement techniques. Attempts to replicate the feats using ancient tools demonstrate the theoretical possibility of moving smaller stones, yet the largest blocks remain almost impossible to maneuver without modern machinery. Even the act of hypothesizing about ancient techniques highlights both the ingenuity of past civilizations and the limits of our understanding. The human story behind the Baalbek Trilithon is as compelling as the stones themselves. Imagine teams of workers, planners, and artisans coordinating tasks across the valley, understanding the properties of limestone, the physics of leverage, and the potential pitfalls of error. Their work required not only strength but observation, trial and error, and perhaps even early experimentation with mechanical principles. The social and political organization necessary for such an undertaking implies a civilization with vision, authority, and the ability to inspire and sustain collective labor over years, if not decades. Standing before the Trilithon today, it is impossible not to feel the scale of ambition and mystery that it embodies. The stones are silent witnesses to human ingenuity, perseverance, and perhaps knowledge now lost to time. They provoke questions about the limits of engineering, the capabilities of ancient societies, and the cultural or spiritual imperatives that drove construction of such unparalleled scale. Even as we uncover tools, analyze terrain, and simulate potential methods, the ultimate answer remains elusive. And so, as we contemplate the Baalbek Trilithon, we are left with questions that endure across millennia. How were these colossal stones transported and positioned with such precision? What knowledge and organization did their builders possess, and why did they undertake such monumental labor? Could there be methods or understandings that have vanished from memory, leaving only the stones themselves as evidence of human brilliance? The mystery remains, inviting us to stand in awe before the scale of human ambition and to wonder what secrets these stones continue to guard in the quiet of the Bekaa Valley. From the monumental stones of Baalbek, whose colossal weight and precision continue to baffle scholars, our journey takes us deeper into the deserts of northeastern Africa, to a place where ancient peoples left traces not of empire, but of ritual, observation, and perhaps early astronomical insight. Here lies Nabta Playa, a remote desert basin in southern Egypt, once a seasonal gathering site, and now a silent landscape of stone circles, alignments, and enigmatic megaliths. Spread across the arid sands, these arrangements date back as far as 4,500 BC, predating the construction of the pyramids at Giza, and hint at a level of organization, planning, and cosmological awareness that challenges conventional assumptions about Neolithic societies in the Sahara. At first glance, Nabta Playa seems almost empty, a harsh expanse of stone and sand under a blazing sun. Yet scattered across the basin are arrangements of sandstone blocks, some set upright, others laid flat in precise circles or lines. Certain megaliths appear to align with the rising and setting of the sun during solstices, while others hint at lunar or stellar orientation, suggesting that the builders possessed keen astronomical observation skills. Archaeologists have identified hundreds of features, including stone circles, tumuli, and a series of carved markers, all of which point to complex social and ritual practices. This is not a landscape of simple survival. It is a constructed environment, infused with intention, measurement, and perhaps a desire to connect with forces beyond the visible world. Mainstream interpretations suggest that Nabta Playa served as a ceremonial center, a seasonal gathering place where communities met for ritual, trade, and social exchange. The alignments of the stones may have functioned as a primitive calendar, marking seasonal changes critical to herding, water management, or ceremonial cycles. Artifacts found in the area, ceramics, animal remains, and tools support the idea of human occupation and structured activity. Yet the precise function of each megalith remains uncertain. Were the stones purely symbolic, or did they serve practical purposes as well, such as tracking the movement of celestial bodies to guide agricultural or pastoral decisions? The mystery deepens when we consider the abrupt abandonment of Nabta Playa around 2500 BC. For centuries, this basin supported gatherings of herders and ritual participants, yet environmental changes, particularly the gradual desiccation of the region, may have rendered the area less hospitable. The desert encroached, water sources diminished, and seasonal rains became increasingly unreliable. Yet the scale and sophistication of the site raise questions. Why did such a carefully organized ceremonial center, capable of sustaining communities over millennia, vanish so suddenly? Did social, cultural, or religious factors accelerate its decline alongside environmental pressures? Speculative theories invite further contemplation. Some researchers propose that Nabta Playa represents an early manifestation of proto-astronomy, a deliberate attempt to map the heavens on the Earth, connecting human activity with celestial cycles. Could the abrupt abandonment indicate a shift in cosmological understanding, a change in ritual practice, or even conflict between communities? Others suggest that the site may have served as a pilgrimage center, attracting groups from across the Sahara, whose movements were tied to both spiritual and survival imperatives. If so, the decline of Nabta Playa might reflect broader regional changes, shifting trade routes, climate fluctuations, or the rise of competing centers that altered the social landscape. The technical sophistication of the site continues to provoke intrigue. Certain stones, carefully shaped and positioned, demonstrate knowledge of measurement, geometry, and alignment that seems surprisingly advanced for a Neolithic community. The ability to track solstices or lunar cycles implies sustained observation over generations, meticulous record-keeping, and communication of knowledge across time. How was this knowledge preserved, transmitted, and applied? Did the builders possess a symbolic or mathematical understanding we cannot fully reconstruct? And what motivated them to invest such labor into structures that, though monumental in cultural significance, offered no immediate survival advantage? Environmental factors alone do not fully explain the disappearance of Nabta Playa. Although the encroachment of desert and decline of water sources likely played a role, the site's sudden abandonment may also reflect social and cultural dynamics. Changes in leadership, religious practices, or inter-community relations could have contributed. The megaliths, once central to collective identity and ritual, may have lost their relevance, leaving the basin deserted as populations migrated to more sustainable regions. Yet, the stones remain, arranged in deliberate formations that speak to a memory of human presence, ingenuity, and purpose, silent witnesses to a vanished culture. Modern investigation has revealed tantalizing fragments of understanding but few definitive answers. Ground surveys, satellite imagery, and excavations have mapped the stone alignments and uncovered associated artifacts, yet much of the site remains unexcavated, its secrets buried beneath layers of sand and millennia of wind-blown sediment. Radiocarbon dating provides approximate timelines, but questions of intent, symbolism, and function remain elusive. Each new discovery illuminates aspects of the culture while simultaneously deepening the mystery. Why these particular stones, in these arrangements, at this precise location? And why did the site end abruptly after centuries of use? The human element imbues Nabta Playa with a sense of wonder. Imagine the gatherings. Families, herders, and ritual participants moving across the basin, arranging stones with deliberate care, observing the heavens, and marking the passage of time. The labor, coordination, and foresight required to construct and maintain the site reflect both social cohesion and a shared cultural vision. Yet, despite their efforts, the community abandoned the site, leaving the stones behind as the desert slowly reclaimed them. What stories, beliefs, and knowledge disappeared along with the people, and how much remains encoded in the stones themselves, waiting for interpretation? Nabta Playa also invites reflection on the resilience and impermanence of human achievement. The megaliths endure, standing against the harsh desert climate, yet the culture that built them has vanished. In this sense, the site functions as both archive and enigma, a record of human intention preserved in stone, but a narrative whose chapters are missing. What social structures enabled such communal construction? And why did they collapse? How did these early desert communities navigate environmental challenges, maintain ritual continuity, and coordinate efforts across generations? The site challenges us to consider how humans adapt to extreme conditions, and how the impermanence of social and environmental stability shapes the archaeological record. As we trace the contours of stone circles, tumuli, and alignments at Nabta Playa, the desert itself seems to breathe a quiet story of both human ambition and vulnerability. The site is a testament to creativity, observation, and collective effort, yet its sudden abandonment underscores the fragility of even the most sophisticated endeavors. What insights might remain hidden in the unexcavated portions of the basin, or encoded in the subtle orientation of stones against the horizon? Could further research reveal patterns that connect Nabta Playa to other contemporary sites across the Sahara or the Levant, illuminating broader networks of prehistoric knowledge and ritual practice. And so, as the sun sets across the sands of Nabta Playa, casting long shadows from stones whose purpose we can only speculate upon, we are left with enduring questions. Why was the site abandoned so abruptly? And what cultural or environmental forces precipitated its decline? What knowledge and ritual practices have been lost beneath the sands? And how might the alignment of these stones speak to a worldview we can no longer fully comprehend? Nabta Playa stands as a silent monument to human ingenuity, observation, and mystery. A reminder that even in the most inhospitable environments, our ancestors sought to understand, mark, and connect with the cosmos, and that some of their most profound intentions remain hidden, awaiting discovery.